One. Come on with the preview. Why is there a preview? Why can't I go live? Starting live. That's helpful. And live. Welcome to Slow News Day Live. My name is Steve Poikinen. I am here in beautiful Boulder Creek, California. And this afternoon I am joined by three very handsome gentlemen. That includes me and Pat the Berner and John Graziano. And I am also joined by my buddy Jason Carney.
My people.
We've got heads up in the swamp house. I'll go into why it's called the swamp house. There's even a plaque across the street. So wow, shit. Let's get going. Let's walk around the room and introduce yourselves. Say what's happening, lads.
Pat the Berner, Nate Silver, formerly known as the artist, formerly known as Peter Douche. I'm just here to add some comments about my terrible opinion to these people's wisdom.
That's why we keep you around.
Two cuts.
Satisfactory.
Still amazed I'm here. Going on.
All right, I'm John Graziano, plain old Johnny Graz on Twitter. I've had a busy week. I'm chief technical advisor to Sema Hernandez's campaign, so we've been dealing with
Congratulations.
all kinds of crazy shit, including the El Paso shootings, and then John Cornyn's reaction to the El Paso shootings, and John Cornyn pandering to people who do things like, shoot up a bunch of brown people. So it's been an interesting and very busy week. Also setting up for anybody who's interested in the LA area, a mid-September visit from SEMA to East LA.
Let's talk.
So we're gonna be setting that up, and the notices and ticketing will go out this week. We're gonna set the ticket price at $1, and the thought is that if people, because it's in East LA and we don't want to price anybody out of coming to the event, but we will have, if people do want to donate, we will have opportunities there if you want to help fund your campaign, and definitely help if you guys want to go into a little bit more later on about why we need to get Sem in there and not some of the other Democrats that are running. We can certainly talk about that.
Hey, I'm me.
Jason
Carney at Param Quern. I'm here to antagonize, piss off the general masses. I'm excited to be down here in the beautiful land of what is it, fruits and nuts? Something about the.
You're from Sacramento.
That's why they actually grow the fruits and nuts here.
No, like once upon a time, maybe that was San Jose. Once upon a time.
You know what?
Now they just grow corruption and fucking concrete.
The 916 has to be good at something. It has to be good at something. I'm having a blast down here. I'm really excited to sit here and talk with these guys. I don't want to talk about that. We're going to have an MLS team, and that's what counts. I really want to dive into this and start going crazy. This is going to be a blast.
Holy shitballs, they found Jeffrey Epstein suicided in his jail cell this morning. Raise your hand if you're surprised that this happened. You're surprised that this happened, Jay.
Oh, wait. We're talking about Jeffrey Epstein?
Yeah.
I thought we were talking about Antonio Brown. No, I'm not completely. No, we're good. We're good. I'm not surprised.
You guys... So, our buddy Graham Elwood has said, out loud a few times, there's no way he's going to trial. There's a lot of people who had him going maybe 30 or 60 days max.
What did Nate Silver have to say, though? Did he have an over-under on it?
Did 538 cover this?
Until he has an opinion, I don't know if I believe it.
I know 538 covered this because he's always right. He's always right.
Granted, every single person on earth who follows politics, predicted his death.
Yeah.
And then it happens.
I'm pretty sure Nate still says there's a 71.4 chance he's alive.
So there's a thing about that.
71.4 is a good touch.
there's a thing about that we'll get to when Taylor and Brook call in. But if you guys aren't aware, I've had Whitney Webb on the show twice now to discuss her fucking mind-blowing series that she's been doing in Mint Press News, and I just had her on Thursday, and we in part 3 she doesn't even get to Epstein's ties to the Clintons or the Democrats or anything like that. There is an unwritten fourth part that I would imagine it is going to be make it unpleasant for her after she publishes it. Like, one of the last things she said on the interview was, I really don't see us not getting deplatformed soon.
This couldn't have been scripted any better. The sad part is everybody accurately predicted it, and we didn't need Nate Silver's prognostication and his ability to see into the future to figure this out.
Emotional math.
Oh, emotional math, my bad. Being dead inside, I don't have that. But at the end of the day, we all saw this coming. There wasn't a person that I know who was like, oh, how did that happen? I'm amazed. I'm amazed how it's being covered, and I'm amazed at the faux shock that is coming from this administration and other political heads, knowing full well this was going to happen. Don't
Twitter right now is a war between the Clintons did it and the Trumps did it.
Yeah.
Right.
Which means everybody knows somebody did it.
Somebody did it. I
think it was a
personally, I'm convinced it was Alan Dershowitz. I'm imagining him in a cat burglar suit with a ski mask on, like breaking into the prison. But the thing is, I actually went all the way through that to the point where I was actually a little surprised they did it because it was so obvious.
Right.
And I replied to you this morning about the idea that this is some sort of a conspiracy theory, right? Saying or having the default position be that there was foul play in this death is the right way to swing the burden of proof.
Oh, for sure.
Because the government, when they have someone in their custody, it's just like innocent until proven guilty.
Mm-hmm.
The burden of proof is on them to show that that this
Guilt,
was
which is amplified 1,000 times when everyone is telling you he's going to be murdered.
Oh, right.
Yeah, exactly.
He is going to be murdered, said 400 million people.
Yeah.
It's sad because I had mixed emotions about this. I'm glad that bastard's dead, and I hope it was painful, and I hope it was miserable, but we have so many answers that'll never see the light of day, and these people that deserve justice will never get it because this man either killed himself, and I say that very just whatever, or he was murdered. Either way, these people are going to go without justice.
Yeah, I'm not happy he's dead. I was hoping that Jeffrey Epstein would live a long and miserable life in prison, and that he would name every name he had. But first, the thing that I think is surprising is kind of the attitude I'm hearing from you guys, which is, oh well, they killed him.
Oh no, I don't. I do not share that attitude.
I do. I'll freely admit it because
Graziano.
I'm not shocked, and I don't see a way out for justice to be served for all the innocent victims that this bastard and his little ring connected with. For me, it's a frustration thing. For me, it was so obvious that it was going to happen. Why did it have to happen? So, I mean, when you get to that level of anger, disengagement is typically the form of self-preservation that one uses.
I've never learned how to do that.
This Epstein thing gave me a crash course pretty quickly.
Yeah, I mean, I wish I would, because I think, I mean, there's a lot of things coming down the pike where that attitude would probably save me a lot of pain, because I'm pretty convinced they're going to steal the nomination from Bernie.
Oh yeah,
right.
Yeah,
and,
we all agree on
and
that. Sorry, I don't want to speak.
Well, no, I agree. They're going to do everything they can. I think Bernie's team's going to fight it in a different way than we're used to.
That Joe Rogan interview.
interview. So I think he's going to fight it in a different way. I mean,
that he'll actually fight it this time.
Well, yeah. Well, I 100%. Yeah. Because in 2016 he didn't want to damage her. He wasn't seen as a front runner. Look at all the shit he got for fucking working his ass off for her. So if he'd have come out and
Galvanized.
challenged initially, because the worst of the states probably were initially, but then New York was terrible, Arizona was terrible, California, but California didn't really matter. So he was put in a fucked up spot. He wouldn't be the guy on the ballot right now.
You were there for the Sacramento rally in which Bernie did. We were up on stage taking pictures and everything else because we were working with the campaign out of North Highlands. And I see this mass of people of all different colors, of all different sexual orientations, different walks of life. It was just crowds upon crowds. And then you go over to the Hillary Clinton deal, and it was 157 people in a small hall. So to have California come out with the results, as Steve, correct me if I'm wrong, the day before or the evening before,
the AP announced.
It's like,
no. What happened?
Wait a minute.
What happened is the AP announced the day before that Hillary had sealed the nomination, and that was based on superdelegate counts that were forecasted. So they put that out the day before California voted, which obviously suppresses votes for which you can blame for any Republicans that won their seats.
Right.
It's probably because you suppressed a lot of Democrats.
What was the point of voting at that point?
Who would have voted Democrat if you were a Bernie supporter. A lot of those Bernie supporters in California were like, well, this is bullshit. So those are Democratic votes that didn't happen in areas where Republicans might have won by small margins.
But the fact that Bernie didn't pick up, and again, I'm a Bernie advocate, I've been transparent about this, I found to be the most frustrating part was this was all obvious. This wasn't something that was subtle and there was innuendos toward it. It was, you're not what we want, your people aren't what we want, go fuck yourselves. And for him not to go, whoa, wait.
So my pushback on that is that by California, the only chance we had was a nomination convention fight, which wasn't going to happen, realistically. So if it's not going to happen, he was going to be so damaged coming out of that already, having campaigned for her. After that, he ended up campaigning for her, obviously, heavily. But think of how much
productive too, because look at what that's bought him now. He sold himself out to go champion for the neoliberal, and that was supposed to garner him love and affection from the centrist masses. And look what we're dealing with now.
I want to put a pin in this.
They hate him even.
Am I wrong?
I really want to put a pin in this because for two reasons. Because it's worth coming back to, but we've got a fuck ton of cartoonishness going on. You guys were talking about this. It's been predicted across the board. They're now coming out and saying that, oh yeah, well the cameras were down.
Right.
We don't really know what. So it's I guess we'll never know how he killed himself. And there was the thing where he was supposed to be on suicide watch, and then we found out no, he wasn't on suicide watch, but he was in a single room cell by himself and somehow managed to hang himself. And I guess it's because they gave him access to blankets back or whatever. But you're supposed to have a camera.
Yeah.
Everybody's cell has a camera in it. I don't know if you guys have ever been locked up.
Who's watching?
But there's a camera in your fucking cell.
Never been locked up, but yeah, that makes sense.
Especially if you're a high fucking value prisoner who fucking has information on hundreds of oligarchs and you're wrapped up in a child sex trafficking fucking for blackmail and sport and power scandal that, according to Whitney Webb's reporting, started in the 1920s with the National Crime Syndicate and Meyer fucking Lansky and Sam Bronfman, and to this day there are members of the Bronfman family who are getting called out and arrested in this. One of the Bronfmans was wrapped up in the NXIVM cult. Roy Cohn, who was Donald Trump's personal groomer, is at the heart of this, going back to the McCarthy hearings when he was an unknown who got thrown at Joe McCarthy to be an aide.
So what you're saying is it's a fluke.
I want to throw this.
Shit happens.
I want to throw this in because John was talking about. I was talking about my disengagement. This is nice to see. Lisa Bloom, who's representing some of the victims, is still going to pursue civil cases so that these victims are heard and they get what they're owed from this slimy bastard and his estate. So,
but none
it
of
gives you a
that
little
will,
hope.
none of that will expose the people he catered
Depositions.
to.
Right.
Well, but even those people will have their personal cases, but it's not going to expose Bill Clinton. It's not going to expose Trump. It's not the same way that he could have. Hypothetically,
with depositions, it can bring out a whole lot of stuff, though. That's what we're hoping for.
You could,
yeah.
Look at the one woman who dropped her case against Trump.
Yeah.
What effect do you think this is going to have on victims wanting to come forward when the main dude just sort of shows up dead?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, particularly when.
Well, that's the whole thing, dude. Jeffrey Epstein is not the main dude. Jeffrey Epstein is one guy who has been a central figure in one area of an international child sex trafficking ring to a number of prime ministers, members of the Saudi royal family, members of the British royal family, countless numbers of CEOs, U.S. presidents, members of high rank, fuck J. Edgar Hoover, and it goes on and on. So this is, if you believe Whitney Webb, and I do, and you follow up on her reporting, and you verify, because she sources 100% of her work. I threw a link to it in the chat. If you do that, the tentacles that it takes covering Epstein alone expose so many other different avenues of both organized and crime through the United States Mafia and participation with the U.S. government, which is a contributing factor to why no one named Kennedy, with a willingness to change anything, made it out of the 60s.
But can we talk about how, the obligation you should be under in his situation, if you're law authorities, to film him 24/7. You should have that. That is your duty when it's such a huge thing that so many people are concerned about and putting it in your face. And a webcam is fucking free. Like, you don't have to spend any money on it. You could put a $20 webcam up in the corner, record it forever for absolutely $0.
It's not about that.
Well,
No, but I mean that's.
I would like to piggyback on this, knowing how severe and important and high profile this particular prisoner is, or however you want to phrase it. Why wasn't there at least one guard there doing round the clock? I mean, they have enough guards. The camera's one thing, but sitting there, especially if he was on a 5150, or allegedly on a 5150, why not have one present? Right. Sorry, 5150 is suicide watch. Having a guard there. 3 8-hour shifts. That's all it takes. One person. He's not, you're not going to have to worry about a riot breaking out and then half the forces are watching Jeffrey Epstein. But one person there, knowing the implications of what this man had for knowledge, how he would be able to lay out the crimes committed by others, things of that nature. What was so hard about that? No camera required. One individual. Yeah, you have the camera on there, but you have one person in there knowing how important this was.
So here's what happened, though. There immediately was a picture of Epstein being wheeled out on a stretcher, uncovered.
Which is not typical.
Thought you covered a dead body. There's no statement so far that I know of from the guards. There's no statement so far that I know of for the warden, although I saw where Cassandra Fairbanks was like standing like 20 feet away from the warden's parking spot in case he decides to come out.
I don't see that happening.
Right.
Can I inject something here that's bothering me as I'm looking at Twitter? Instead of turning it a team red versus blue with Clinton body count, Trump body count, how about we focus on the victims that have been fucked over by this horrible man and whoever else was associated with him, and focus on them, not Trump body count or Clinton body count. I'm throwing that out to Twitter. I'm hoping people are watching. Stop being ass clowns and let's focus on the victims.
And while you're at it, if you have a blue check next to your name, stop blaming Vladimir Putin for this. There are too many fucking people who are like, this sounds just like Russia.
Joe Scarborough did it. Joe Scarborough did it this morning.
Ron Perlman would just said, Vlad!
Yeah. Well, and yes. Joe pissed me off, and I responded with, "I bet Russia killed your intern too."
Oh Jesus!
But it's amazing. If one thing that I think this event this morning has removed all doubt from is that Russiagate has been specifically engineered to distract from any type of wrongdoing that the Democrats might be accused of.
But is it working? So what happens on Twitter is, it works on MSNBC. It works for the people that don't follow things closer.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
But on Twitter, when somebody, I'm like, here's a fact about Kamala. And they're like, bot. So what does bot mean? Like, you're losing the argument. It's the most empty. I get that it works for the people that watch CNN and NBC, but...
What's the difference between a quote-unquote bot and people parroting like Joy Reid and others that have parroted the party line for the centrist Democrats? What's the difference between a bot that's purchased, pre-programmed to repeat a line or a stick with the talking point over and over again than a pundit who does the same thing for MSNBC, Fox News, or anything else? I'm curious. Is anybody else seeing that dichotomy there?
About $3 million a year.
Yeah. But they're all bots.
Different. Yeah.
So anybody with an opinion could be a bot.
Well, as a tech guy, it bothers me because a bot is usually literally
right, and that bothers me too.
Right.
Like, even if it's a person that's a shill for a campaign, don't call them a bot because it's the worst argument.
Lemming's fantastic.
Lemming is a better term.
But I think it's pretty clear whether you call them bots, whether you call them shills, whether you call them paid trolls, that there are huge networks of these trolls. You see evidence of it all the time. When some and the thing, the one that really twigged me was in 2015 when the phrase "Lily White Vermont" started being thrown around. But the thing is that Lily was spelled Lilly, so it was misspelled, and you just saw that
over and over again
through just hundreds of these 17 follower accounts that just joined a month ago, or these people who have been on. You see a lot of these accounts have been on Twitter since 2010, and they don't have any tweets before 6 weeks ago, and they come out and their first tweet is a political tweet, and they have maybe 28 tweets that day, and it's all along the same lines of Bernie's a fraud.
I don't think much of that has changed because I'll say you get the same narratives, and if you watch, you have to actually watch CNN and MSNBC, I think, to pick up on them, which is why I watch them, because all of a sudden you'll hear Warren is Bernie 2.0, and that's a thing for a while, and then you go online and you're like, oh, look at all these people saying Warren is Bernie 2.0, or the other catchphrase recently is the internet's not the web is not real life,
right?
More or less. But these are think tank created narratives pushed by Cap and Third
marketing.
Way. It's a whole thing that gets fed to people. So when you see these people on TV parroting that, and then you go online and you hear that from these people, it's not a coincidence. It's strategy.
Well, I want to touch on too. Obviously, Russiagate was a diversion for the failure of 2016 because the former senator, former Secretary of State Clinton couldn't be bothered to campaign in 3 states that were showing as the election was closing that Trump closed the gap and had an advantage in an area. Just because she couldn't get off her ass to go there and lose, we've had this whole Russiagate deal. Now, for me, I believe, and Steve and I have talked about this, the Emoluments Clause is the one way you're going to impeach this bastard. It's the one thing that is obvious, and it's not sexy. I get it. But if you really want to go after this guy and put the Dark Emperor Palpatine behind him into power, you're going to go with the Emoluments Clause.
That would be the easiest thing in the world.
But here's what I want to get at.
I thought they already scrapped that idea back in May of 2017, though.
We're going to attack Democrats a lot on this, and that's well deserved. But I also want to throw in it for the Republicans with the corruption and things that are going on there. I think it needs to be said for the audience and anybody else. The 2 parties that we have are constantly going to screw us in Epstein-esque stuff and Venezuela and all these other situations are because of the two parties.
Let's circle back around to what you guys were talking about with conspiracy theories. The FBI document that leaked the other week specifically states that, and it's directed to all law enforcement agencies and all of that shit, it says conspiracy theories are the gateway drug to domestic terrorism. And
right, research.
And this last line here, the internet has also enabled a crowdsourcing effect wherein conspiracy theory followers themselves shape a given theory by presenting information that supplements, expands, or localizes the narrative. And we had just Monday Donald Trump saying we need to shine light on the darkest corners or the darkest recesses of the internet and stop these mass shootings before they start. I.e., we need a pre or thought crime division in federal government.
Someone needs to monitor my chat, is what they're saying.
We had
which I don't mean directly. I didn't say those things. I'm just just
in case anyone's
FBI.
listening.
FBI's
She's here for the there's a Burning Man build going on right over here. It's
and it's awesome.
Yeah. So there's a tie-in with the document leaking, with mass shootings, with the silencing of Epstein, and that is a push by Bill Barr and the Department of Justice for law enforcement agencies to have backdoor access into all encrypted apps. The argument is being made by all branches of federal investigative services and law and local law enforcement and the Attorney General. Bill Barr was giving a speech a couple weeks ago where he said there would be an event any day now that would galvanize the people and change their opinion on the need for this kind of increase in security. You don't have anything to be afraid of if you're not doing anything wrong. And it's for your own good.
That theory worked out real well for the Nazis too.
Well, we've had this going on since the Patriot Act.
Oh, Joe Biden.
Joe Biden.
Joe Biden, which was a big proponent of the Patriot Act. Hillary Clinton voted for the Patriot Act.
Kamala Harris wishes she could, dude. Like,
She
that's
wants to
her
go back in
one
time and vote
regret.
for the
Like,
Patriot
yeah,
Act.
man, if I hadn't have been fucking overwhelmingly incarcerating black and brown people for poverty crimes,
Okay.
I could have been voting for the Iraq
but
War.
are we really sure about that? Because I think there's a pretty good chance she would have voted against it because it didn't go far enough.
She would have voted for it, then she would have voted
We
against
had
it.
our own legislation.
She would have had her own, like the Kamala Act, which would.
Oh no! She just would have. She would have been on that Senate Intelligence Committee and helped wink and nudge any black budget operation that needed to go through and given a pass to all that shit. And that's how that would have played out.
She would have definitely added the amendment to accept mortgage brokers.
I mean, the more people she could jail, the better. It's good for California.
Yeah.
As a Californian, I'm all for jailing as many people as possible.
Yeah.
And leaving them in jail and fighting the courts to keep them in jail.
The Abolitionist Project.
Did you guys see the NIMBY vigilante squad who fucking set two different RVs on fire on the same block in a West Oakland neighborhood the other week?
No.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, they
Oakland, I didn't hear
kicked
about
in this
that.
one woman's RV door and said, okay, look, you can burn or you can run. And they started pouring gasoline inside her RV and she split.
Who was this?
This was a couple of nights ago, or maybe a week ago Thursday in West Oakland. I will verify.
Who did this to who? I'm sorry, I'm looking up something.
So
but
residents of a they don't know. It's two masked gunmen.
Okay.
Okay. And
this
there
is
were
a homeless
people.
person, right?
Yeah, street camping. In RVs in a West Oakland neighborhood, and they broke into her RV and said, "Okay, well, here's how this is gonna go down. They're masked. They have guns. they said you can burn or you can run, and they started pouring gas inside her RV.
You know, I feel bad to initially have thought it was a police action, but then that tells you where we are.
Right, here we go.
I still think it probably was a police action.
Who's to say it's not?
Just,
And all this article has. Okay, that's fine.
Can I throw out something funny?
Yeah.
In the first 4 months of 2019, Democrat Party has spent more than it raised and added $3 million in new debt. In the same period, Republicans' counterpart were stockpiling cash. And most of this money is to go against the Bernie Sanders and the Tulsis. Reading through Bloomberg. So, found a credible source, all that other fun stuff.
Why would they do that since Biden's the front runner? I mean, that's kind of odd that all this money's going to fight the Bernies and Tulsis when Biden's the front runner.
Because Biden's not the front runner.
Yeah, I mean, that's the obvious thing.
I mean, you have the head of Monmouth Poll who's just posting anti-Bernie propaganda. And of course, the head of Harris Poll is Mark Penn, our old friend Mark Penn, the guy who on Hillary's campaign started the Berner movement, started the birther movement, with his famous 2007 memo, and also the guy who had to be fired because he didn't understand that where delegates were concerned, primaries weren't winner take all. So he's going in here doing all of this planning. Super genius Mark Penn, and he doesn't realize that they split the delegates proportionally.
I just had a pinky in a brain moment there. Go ahead.
So he just has no he has no business doing this.
Right.
And actually, think how bad of a staffer you have to be to get fired from Hillary Clinton's campaign.
Oh, you got to be like next level.
It's rough.
Yeah. So he's the guy running Harris Poll, which has consistently shown Biden as given
so
Biden
that's
the
two
biggest
of
lead.
the how many major polls you need to qualify for the debates. I mean, that's
Well,
two of the big ones.
Gallup is super conservative, pro-Trump.
Yeah. So you got three of the major polls.
But Bernie is the only one to go to Fox and the only one to go to Joe Rogan, and it's paid
Tulsi
dividends.
was on Joe Rogan.
Oh, I'm sorry, I forgot about that. That only garnered what 2.5 million. I'm being sarcastic when I say that.
Yeah.
It's not only.
Yeah.
I'm being sarcastic, but. You have the two candidates that are serious about helping the American people, willing to wade into the waters of conservative nonsense to speak to that crowd,
and winning them over.
I'm just saying.
So think of how popular those two were on Joe Rogan's show.
Right.
Versus, remember when they were all hyping up Beto?
Oh God,
Right?
yeah.
Beto actually
Train.
brought MSNBC's network down when he had his town hall. His town hall had less viewers than Don Lemon at his regular hour.
But I thought he was the next Kennedy.
And that was at peak Beto time.
What I loved more than Bobby Franny tanking, because he's from El Paso and his name is Robert Francis. He should be Bobby Franny from El Paso.
Bobby Franny.
You know,
Bobby Franny online too.
You know what? That sounds too cool.
No, it
Out
really
of your
doesn't.
mouth. If I call him Bobby Franny, it's different. But
Bobby Franny.
Bobby Franny.
Bobby Franny.
Little
Bobby.
Bobby Franny O'Rourke. He's not a good kid. If you put Wisconsin on it or something, yeah, it really sounds like
You
it.
betcha.
Yeah.
You
To
betcha.
me, Beto is the guy in the band that you're at this great concert and all of a sudden he has to fucking give a speech about politics and you put up with it for a couple seconds and you're like, this is the dumbest motherfucker.
How could anyone
ever.
be more of a
Ever.
douchebag than Bono?
Yeah, for sure, Beto.
You know what, man? When Bono speaks, it hits me right here. So I mean, I get.
No, I'm kidding. I can't continue that. No, Beto should never been taken seriously. If you can't beat Ted Cruz,
So
how in the
I'm
fuck are you gonna beat
gonna
anybody else?
put the graph of who's eligible for the debates up, or the VIN of who's eligible for the debates up right now, because ain't that some shit?
I love that there's a donor threshold. I love that's a stat now. How much money are you able to cull away from millionaires and billionaires? That'll justify whether or not you get to talk in front of the American people.
Yeah.
That's super awesome. I wanted to point
Well, I
that
think
out.
that's individual donors, unique donors. So that's at least 130,000 unique donors.
Money should not be a statistic. I'm sorry. that's just asking for corruption and other issues. I mean, yes, qualified polling threshold, whatever.
Yeah, but if you see, so Steyer, that might be what keeps his his billionaire ass off the stage, because he can raise as much money as he wants, and somehow they can cook him in the polls. But to find 130,000 people in different states to match the threshold,
do they cap it at 10?
No, it's just $1.
No, I mean, does the DNC cap? No, I mean, like what?
They don't.
So would they'd split it up like a half a dozen?
They've said it's possible to have 2 debates at the next one, like last time. So if you meet both thresholds, I think you're automatically in.
When you have 24 people running for, 20 now, if you have 20 people running for office, I mean, I get it, but there's serious contenders and there's not serious contenders.
But there's a flaw in their logic. So that's that's for this debate. I just want to say real quick, that's for this debate. So they've extended, so the same requirements to get into this one extend to the next one.
Okay.
But you have a longer period to qualify. So what they're trying to do is, you might have a situation where you have 10 to 12 this time, and then there are 20 again next debate.
But
so what happens with that is you end up perpetuating whatever thing you have going.
But
so
there's no momentum there. You need all 20 to hope that there would be 20 in the follow one, because whoever the 10 or 12 is in this one is going to be the ones that are heard and ones reported about and getting the free press, etc. And let's say those 8 that aren't in it, they're going to have a harder time trying to get to that threshold so they can get into the next debate.
For sure. I get that. But if you're on the margins, like some of these people are going to be close and they're going to get in. So if those rules stay the same, by the next debate, this two debates from now, you're going to have more people again, which again is going to dilute the message.
Right.
I think the debates are just pointless at this point. I just think, and I think Bernie has shown that this week, where he went on a long form discussion, and he converted a lot of voters.
Right.
Now, let me also say that those voters he converted by going on Fox, and those voters he converted by going on Joe Rogan, will never show up in a Monmouth or Harris opinion poll. And the reason they won't is because they're only polling registered Democrats. The poll is rigged at the start.
Oh, yeah.
And if you opened it up to non-registered Democrats and people who are not yet registered to vote at all, and people who have not voted in elections,
Bernie's running away with it.
He would be above 50%.
According to the Monmouth polls guy.
Why are we even giving them credence?
Well, I just want to bring it up. So in Iowa, allegedly, Bernie's at 9% in 4th. Bernie has 25,000 volunteers in Iowa, and their biggest turnout in Iowa was like 200 and something thousand.
Right.
So his volunteers alone make up more votes than they're giving him credit for in the poll. Is that realistic?
Of course not. I want to to the point of that. I think it's intentional that Tulsi Gabbard is doing so poorly according to those polls, and those are the polls that they are going off of for the reason you just mentioned. Tulsi Gabbard's base, not registered Democrats. You know, she has a much broader spectrum and more independent, wired spectrum.
And of course, the corporate Democrats take that as a huge indictment of her.
Well, she committed the ultimate sin by stepping away from the debates and calling out how they were stacked for mother, and they have never forgiven her for that sin alone.
No, but she lost her rib back in 2014 when she said that she dropped out of being the vice chair of the DNC.
That's what I'm saying.
That's when she really got.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that's the ultimate sin she committed, and anything she's done. She got that letter from Democrats in the House saying "fuck you." You know, she's like 30, 40 of them signed it, saying anything that you try to do, we're not going to fucking help you on your own, bitch.
And she called, and she talked to Bashad, and it was horrible.
Well, the smears are all old because and they're all fucking made up because over the last several years, she's had a genuinely progressive record.
Right.
Like, if there's going to be if Hillary Clinton gets to evolve, if Joe Biden gets to evolve,
my problem with the term.
But Tulsi Gabbard's voting record demonstrates that she has at least evolved when it comes time to make a decision to vote on those issues, no matter what her personal convictions are. If they are different than her voting record, she doesn't get the same opportunity
Right.
that every other fucking Democrat
Evolution.
gets.
My problem is evolution seems entirely too fortuitous. It
Seasonal?
seems too, it seems too opportunistic to constantly evolve every election cycle. Like Joe Biden has evolved more than any human being has in the last 100,000 years.
Dude,
just
look
in
at
the
that
span of the last 3
hairline.
months.
He's
Yeah,
regrown
but
hair.
he needed to evolve a little bit.
I don't disagree, but what I'm saying is it's just convenient that just now, in 2019
Visually, he's
going into
wider than
2020.
I've ever seen him.
Yes.
Well,
He's wider than I ever.
that whole
I'm just
comment about poor kids being as smart as white kids, that's not a Freudian slip. That
That's
is
how
his genuine feel.
The one that really caught me, that's the one that's going around, and I had heard of this, but I had never seen the video, where somebody asks him, how is a Northeast liberal like yourself going to fare in the Southern primary states?
Right.
And he said, Delaware was a slave state.
Oh,
Oh, yeah,
Jesus.
That was,
And
that
I
was
was
one
like,
of the worst.
You did not just say that. That alone should have ended his career. I mean, it seems like the media has just been invested in propping up this guy since he showed up in the Senate.
So I think they know he's going to lose. It's just propping him up to buy time and find someone else. They know he's not it. But real people that follow politics all know there's a whole fucking file. You think there's an opposition file on most candidates, a sliver little thing. It's like we can hit Bernie on the guns. We could, we can do these little things, and there's an angle. And Biden's file is fucking the Manila double Redwell.
We're gonna go over
Yeah.
that graph.
Over what
I'm
graph?
intrigued with that graph. Who's?
So anyway,
I just want to put this up because I think it's a good joke.
Oh, okay.
The caption this photo.
Oh.
Yeah.
Is this prom?
That's
know.
yeah. So anywho,
It's
I'm
too bad
thinking
you
of
had
delusional
to.
Biden.
Too bad you had to use Ryan Saavedra. What?
well, yeah, it's fucking.
I challenge anybody to go look at Ryan Saavedra's Abby and tell me that doesn't look like a poorly circumcised penis.
I'm sure it does.
You just described Delaney.
Literally.
Delaney? Yeah,
Poorly?
All trying to hit
No, not
Delaney?
with Delaney's hairline.
Or their
Well
lack of.
circumcised.
Yeah.
That's You're
Well
right. You're right.
circumcised.
You're right.
Designer stubby.
I really
Pure
think,
ribbed
penile.
for her pleasure.
Penile at its most penile form.
I think John Delaney may be the most annoying human in the universe.
Hinkenlooper. Sorry, I
So-
gotta throw him in that. I gotta.
So
throw
we
him
were
in
at
that.
I
California.
feel bad for Hickenlooper sometimes. He's just so soft and ineffectual.
I don't. I lived in Colorado when he was the mayor of Denver. I lived in a Denver suburb. He
God.
was a
How
fucking
does someone like
absolute
that get
gentrifying
elected?
piece
You
of
know
shit.
what? No.
Because he owned the brewery.
Yeah, beer. He made his money on beer. That makes him likable to me a little bit. But-
That's why. He owned that fucking brewery.
Yeah.
And he gentrified the shit of the area around the brewery. So it got high rent and hipster like at the dawn of hipsterdom in fucking downtown Denver. And there was a ballpark and that Coors Field, that whole area got gentrified. It was right around the corner from the brewery. The fucking whole area went to fucking police state. Whoa.
So he's kind of like, he's John Delaney, but you kind of feel a little sorry for him, where everyone's like, fuck John Delaney.
Right.
Like,
The thing that we're going to have to look for, watch for the payoff for John Delaney. I mean, he's a multi-millionaire.
A spot
so
in
it's probably
administration,
not
do
going to be.
Spencer
It's
said?
probably
Spot in administration.
well. I think he's working himself on every neolib candidate's short list for a cabinet.
I think he's like
yeah.
in it to like, he reads to me like a guy that wants to sell like floor tiling.
Oh yeah.
Like he's gonna get out of this.
I get AG.
Here's my I'm John Delaney. I ran for president. Buy my fucking.
I have a
floor
great
tile.
deal on how to
Here's my-
repair your auto glass.
Here's my jingle.
I have a feeling he wants to get involved with Law and Order in some capacity. I
Law
know he's
and
not,
Order?
but he just comes
The
across
TV
as that.
show.
But how
He
did
comes
he up the
across as
stock
that
in this
type.
whole thing?
Yeah, he does give
How
off
did
You know what I mean?
stock go
racist
up?
cop vibes.
I want to be a judge. Oh, he wants to be a judge.
There's
on
gotta
Law
be
and
some-
Order.
There's got to be some, because he just strikes me as a 90s Democrat.
He wants to disagree with Ice-T on camera.
No, he's not a 90s Democrat because if he ran that shit in the 90s, he still wouldn't get elected. He's worse than that. I mean,
I don't know. It's
he's
more,
like a 90s
So,
Republican.
as far as popularity goes, we were at the California Democratic Convention where all these people came.
yeah.
And there's a microphone out with the political candidate. There's a herd of people. 20 people around him, 30 people, 50. Bernie, people are like
Right.
in the next room. They're like, "Is that
You
Bernie?"
just can hear people chanting, Bernie.
You
Bernie.
know, Bernie's coming a room away. No one
Yeah.
else.
A
John
little bit
Delaney
of
walked by me. I'm like, "Was that John fucking Delaney?"
Yeah.
Oh, that was, and I wasn't even like, I was like, "Wait a minute, is it Tom? Is it Delaney? I don't even know what his
I
name is."
remember that.
Did anybody else get the vibe
was
of
it
Dick?
Paul?
You were on my show
Paul
shortly after,
something?
and you kept calling him like Tom Delaney for a minute, and I just let it ride.
I was amazed because
Interchangeable?
even though there are a lot of Democratic candidates, there's still only 20, and this whole thing is about the Democratic Party.
Right.
And he could just walk by me and nobody notices.
Right.
And that was John Delaney.
Oh, there's
Yeah.
Brook.
This thing.
Yeah, I saw him a couple times and I didn't
Hey,
notice.
Hey, Brooke. I'm sorry I didn't know you were there. All right, can you hear me? I can't hear you. Continue.
This is live
somebody
TV,
in the chat wants to know about Warren. If you have to hop back out and then hop back in, that's cool. I'll just leave the screen up.
Here's my thing. This is what we need to watch for. We need to watch for the rallies. We need to watch, and it sucks for us because independent media and things of that nature, we need to constantly combat the narrative about polling because the numbers don't lie when it comes to fundraising.
There's a
Yeah.
chat question about Warren that I want to get to because if you
Okay.
if you're asking about Elizabeth Warren and you haven't heard my
If you're Warren curious, this is the place
my
for
take
you.
on my take is that she has developed the most marketable template for how to be a fake progressive, and that she has successfully brought this template to members of the Justice Democrats and other fucking establishment friendly liberals who need to get their progressive creds up. I don't know why I can't hear you, Brooke. Ooh, maybe try now.
How's that?
There we go.
Hey!
Because I'm a jackass.
Right.
But let me finish my thing about Elizabeth Warren. While she was being put in charge of the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, she received $1.74 million from the securities and investment industry from the year she was handed it in, I believe, 2009 until 2012. She has proven time and time again that when the chips are down, she will.
Yeah, every time.
And the wind always blows the way of the establishment. She has developed this sound bite, like perfect sound bite, where she's great on camera, wagging her finger at CEOs. But again, when it comes down to it, she's still taking money from them. She is running on money she got from fucking super PACs.
And saying she's running a grassroots campaign.
But she won't take that dirty money for the next 6 months.
And then she will.
And then she would.
And then she will.
Because she has to compete.
And then she will.
I mean,
So
that's
it's
logic,
like,
isn't
somebody said it's like telling your partner, honey, I promise not to cheat on you until we're married.
I like that.
It's
It's accurate.
But the other thing about Warren is
Green. I'm sorry. One more thing, real quick. Greening the military and fucking Israel.
Yeah, let's have eco-friendly bombs. I think to me she comes off as so obviously deceptive in what she says.
Right.
And when she talks about Medicare for all, you listen to this. You know, she has this tiny sliver of conscience that will not let her outright lie.
That's why her voice
But do you know,
quivers
do
when
you
she
know why he
lies.
said tiny sliver? Because that was what she changed the top 1% to.
Yeah.
Because that became a marketing thing. She kept saying the top 1%, and her team was like, change it to a sliver. and she started saying the top sliver, and people were like, "Holy shit, that's so new!"
Right.
That is so new.
I would like to at this time bring in Brooke Hines. Brooke has a
Brooke.
weekly show at the Progressive News Network. She writes for the Florida Squeeze. She is a progressive consultant in Florida, and we love it when she comes on. Brooke, how you doing? Are there
You
words?
guys are kind of cutting out.
Okay, sorry about
kind
that.
of cutting out a little bit.
Bummer. I don't really know what to do about that.
I think it's just buffering.
If we pray to Steve Jobs,
Right?
Yeah. No, don't do that.
Don't
Some prayers.
So
that didn't work when Steve was alive.
what's your take on Warren, Brooke? And then if there's something that you would like to bring to the table that we haven't discussed, by all means, please introduce it.
Well, I absolutely agree with what was being said, that Warren comes off completely insincere. And, you know, I mean, the evidence there is there. It's evident that she's just stealing, or her staff is advising her to steal the policy positions of Bernie Sanders so that she can, you know, grab that market share. You know, I'm sure they're thinking of it in terms of, you know, those kind of demographics. They're not looking at this in terms of policy. That's what that says to me. You know, and I want to like her. You know, I liked her in the past when she put out her 2-income trap book. I thought that, you know, that was decades ago, and it was groundbreaking then. But the game that she's played politically isn't a game that we need to be playing right now. She's doing the Hillary Clinton thing, 2.0.
I think Kamala's doing that a little bit more so, but I know where you're going with that, and I do agree.
She is doing that, and the thing that gets me is it's the biggest impression I get when I see her is cowardice. Is that she is an absolute coward. She will not take a stand if it means putting yourself out there at all. That's why she was a no-show at the Dakota Access Pipeline. She was a no-show for Bernie. And she's going to be a no-show president. She will do for Medicare for All what Barack Obama did for the public option.
mm-hmm.
She will convince everyone that she's so in favor, but oh my, it's just so hard. It's just so hard, and there's so much opposition. I guess we're just going to have to let 45,000 people die every year. It's just too hard to do anything else.
That sounds about right.
FDR ran into opposition with his policies and programs, and he contemplated adding members to the Supreme Court so that he could stop running into that buffer of the quote-unquote illegality and unconstitutional components of his New Deal. And he still fought. This guy was in a wheelchair, he had polio, and the guy still fought. So what's stopping any candidate at this point, especially Elizabeth Warren, from saying, okay, I said this to you, I'm going to be your champion? How hard is that?
It would require her to have actual principles.
That's true.
And remember, she, unlike Bernie, who his endorsement of Hillary, he kind of felt that was a forced move after the convention, right? Warren endorsed Hillary while the votes in the California primary were still being counted. And
her endorsement could have won him Michigan.
Massachusetts.
Could have won him Massachusetts,
Yeah.
which would have been a game changer, because it was peak. He was at his peak going into that, and she didn't then.
Yep.
That was the peak. Like, fuck her for life for that.
Elizabeth
Sorry,
Warren
but-
sold out
but
the
that was-
progressives,
that
so
was-
any progressives that go back and think that she's changed, that's your ignorance.
Yeah,
I mean,
but they try to rewrite history that she didn't endorse until after the primaries, and that's not true. I mean, she endorsed during the primaries, but also she didn't endorse when it mattered.
Her lack of endorsement was huge.
It wasn't like it was the first state to vote and she didn't know what was happening. It was a war between progressives and centrists, and she sided with centrists.
And the other thing is, even without her endorsement, and this is the part that I think people need to keep in mind, even without her endorsement, Massachusetts was pretty close to a tie.
Mm-hmm.
But what did Warren do at the convention? The senator from Massachusetts went and cast her superdelegate vote for Hillary Clinton. And to me, that was just betrayal on top of betrayal. And once they do that,
But-
once they stick the knife in your back,
Yeah, but
I'm not going to pretend.
but
they didn't.
even if you go a step farther down about caring about it and say, well, it was her political calculation for her long-term message. She thought it would be better to be progressive, and have a place in Hillary's. She didn't get VP. The whole thing was to get VP, and she fucking gambled and lost. Her political instincts are awful.
Yes.
Awful.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't want to bring up the Indian stuff, but let's just bring it up because Trump's going to fucking bring it up.
Yeah.
Let's stop sugarcoating this shit. So she's allegedly, the one interaction she has with Trump, she loses on a landslide
He
by
crushed
doing
her.
this DNA test. And then, add that to the fact that all progressives were all up in arms over Dapple, and she's allegedly an Indian, a Native American, and she's not protesting Dapple.
Yeah.
So,
Maybe it's
I
the
want-
Massachusetts vibe, but she gives me like major Dukakis vibes.
Yeah.
I mean, seriously, that's a
Yeah.
character
dude, she
reminds
could
me
ride a
also.
tank around.
She could ride a
like
tank
a
with
solar
with
tank.
a-
I need to make a GIF, the meme of a solar tank
Yeah.
with solar panels and Elizabeth Warren's head popping
with
out.
a little helmet
Driving
on.
around.
Like,
I want to get Brooks' 2 cents, and then Taylor, my co-host in the Action for Assange, Free Assange online vigil series, is also with us.
Brilliant.
And I think that's how we circle back around to Epstein for a minute.
Oh, that guy.
Because we got wait, and I know that both of these ladies probably have some shit to say about that.
Say some shit.
So
On the Elizabeth Warren Native American thing,
Oh God.
I don't know why this pisses me off as much as it does, but I just did my 23andMe thing,
Oh.
the DNA testing, which is the same one she did. And her DNA profile that she's using to say that I have, this Native American heritage is about equal to the DNA that I have that's Angolan and Congolese.
Cool.
So I'm feeling
Nice.
like I could have been the first, woman of color at fucking Harvard if
Oh.
I had used that to, advance my college, career. So I'm kind of pissed about this, that I didn't get in on any of this action.
You look super dark. I'm just saying.
you're a May pass.
It's 99% like Irish, and then that 1% like, or 0.1% like Congolese, Angolan. So go figure.
And now the FBI knows, and you paid them to know it.
Mm. I was telling somebody else this. I would feel worse about it if I had kids. Like, I think I would feel different about it, but it's just being me, and I'm a smoker. I'm not long for this world anyway, so what the fuck?
I'll just say, if I had kids, I'd feel worse about a hell of a lot of shit.
I do and I do.
Yeah.
I do and I do. All right, Taylor Hudak. Again, she co-hosts the Free Assange Vigils with me on Wednesday night on the Action for Assange YouTube channel. And she's an activist and a journalist in her own right. What's happening, Taylor?
Hi guys, it's nice to meet the three of you, and it's good to see you again, Steve, and good to see you too, Brooke. So to kind of go back to Epstein, I was able to catch a little bit of your conversation earlier, but I was in fact on the phone with the prison. I called them. Of course, I know that's an ambitious thing to do because, of course, I'm not going to get through to them, but I thought it was worth a try. So basically, I talked to this guy and I asked him for where I could find some statistics on the amount of people that die in the prison yearly and also what the cause of death is. And of course, I knew right away they were going to put me on hold. They did. So I was on hold for about 40 minutes, and then I kind of had to jump onto this stream. So I was not able to get an answer, but I felt it was, of course, worth looking into, because I think that will be very telling as to exactly what happened here. Unfortunately, I do not think we will ever be able to ascertain exactly what happened in the early morning hours of today, but I do find it extremely suspicious, and we do know that, of course, when they're claiming that he was no longer on suicide watch. However, his being such a high-profile defendant, they're typically treated much differently than the rest of the prison population. So his not being, he would be surveilled to a much higher extent than the average person, regardless if he's on suicide watch or not. And I'm not even 100% buying that he wasn't even on suicide watch. So I think that there's going to be more cover-up after more cover-up, because I found it interesting that that information kind of came out after people started to kind of question this on Twitter.
I want to be like upfront about this, because these guys, a couple of them at least, were standing in the room. I got a phone call from a guy who I really fucking respect and trust, and he was trying to explain to me that I needed to look into this prison, and I needed to look into some notorious disappearances out of it, and the call kept dropping 3 times in a row before I was like, fucking, we'll do this later. So
many notorious criminals.
So the picture that leaked, and I want to get both Brook and your opinion on this, Taylor. The picture that leaked had his face in it. If you're wheeling out a dead body, do you usually see its face?
No.
I think that typically, I think they usually do cover their face, and I think good journal, and Brooke, you could speak to this as well too. I think that typically journalists refrain from doing that. I think that's something not a common practice. So I think that's a great point you bring up, Steve, because I think the typical procedure would be to cover their face and not have reporters around either. So it's kind of surprising that there would be a journalist in such close quarters at that time.
Yeah, and there's a photo that's circulating that's side by side of the man on the gurney and a known kind of profile of Epstein, so that you can kind of compare. And it looks, the reason why the side by side is done, I think, is because their noses are totally different, and it seems like their ear is different. And that got me looking at other Epstein photos, and I started questioning the nose thing. So I'm not convinced on that side by side, but I think that that's a real interesting thing to do, and I think it's worthwhile. It's absolutely hinky that photo's been circulated. You know, everybody was caught off guard that Epstein died. So why was somebody there? How did they get there so fast? You know, what was the timing on that? Were they given a tip? You know, these are all questions that I want to ask.
Well, and how is he caught off? How is anyone caught off guard? I mean, within the system, like they've been warned forever that a lot of people think he's going to get murdered in prison and die, and then he gets murdered, and then there's an alleged suicide attempt, and then you die afterwards. In that scenario, like they have a responsibility to have full video coverage. And the idea that they didn't is an indictment of them.
Yeah, and I think we, from my point of view, we need to be a little careful that we don't get into anomaly hunting with this, because in any of these big events that get a lot of attention, you're going to find some weird shit. You know, this happened, why did this happen, right? I don't want to get distracted from the main thing, which is the burden of proof is on the people who were trusted with taking this guy into custody to prove. They have to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that what they're saying happened actually happened. And this is just instinct, and I'm not going on evidence by this, but I would bet money right now that we will never, ever get that. And we don't even have to take one step further down the speculation road on this. It's just, if you have this kind of a high-profile prisoner in your custody, and you're saying this is what happened to him, you better goddamn well have proof that it happened, and then somebody better be held accountable. That's the second thing I would bet on, is that no one is going to be held accountable for what happened here.
And that's the biggest thing. The biggest travesty is the fact that these victims who went through hell, who have been subjected to horrors that most of us can't even comprehend, aren't going to have that moment of justice in which they see the person that did this to them and the people that did this to them suffer the consequences for committing these acts against them. I think that's the biggest thing. Forget Team Red versus Team Blue. Forget who did this, who did that. That's the biggest travesty of this whole thing. And it's just, yeah.
It's my understanding, though, that now that he's dead, there's nobody that is going to come forward with a defense, so the exploration of all of these charges can go forward, and they can sue the estate of Jeffrey Epstein, and in discovery all of that would have to come out. Does anybody know for a fact? That's my understanding of it.
That's what we were talking about earlier.
Got any law dogs?
Well, no, at least in terms of the criminal.
Shit.
In terms of
Ooh.
trial, there's nobody charged with crime. On the other hand, there's nobody to a warrant. So there's a lot of things that have been said about how
Ah, crap. You're
in terms of you can put a state.
you're getting bogged down, Brook. I don't know. Taylor, how about you? Say something. How's your...
Okay. Yeah. Is it okay?
A little bit.
So
Shit.
basically- Okay.
I don't know
Yeah,
what
I'm not
I don't know what's up on Brook's end, but it said the connection was low. Now it says it's back. We'll see. Oh, now it says
Yeah,
yours is low. Shit.
Mine's low.
She's coming in clear for now, though. Let's run with it.
So unfortunately with this, they can't proceed with the criminal case, of course, because the defendant is deceased. Again, I'm not an attorney, I'm not a legal expert, but as far as I understand, they cannot go forward with the case. I think what's very tragic about this, and one of the other panelists alluded to this earlier, was that these women and these girls will not see him be held to justice and for him to spend the rest of his life in prison as he deserves. He deserves that. But other people who are involved in this kind of activity, who are very powerful, will be able to continue to kind of get away with this. So there are people who are going to continue to get harmed because this case is not going to move forward. As far as the civil case goes, I'm not 100% sure exactly how that process works. Maybe Brooke could speak to that a little bit better. But I think it's unfortunate that we will not know who else was all involved in this. And I find it very suspicious that he allegedly committed suicide the day after this more information was brought out into the public sphere.
Yeah, absolutely. So you can sue the estate, but the problem is there's so many interests outside of Epstein that have an interest in pushing back on that. So there's so many different ways that the people can technicalities or find that maybe there's no standing or whatever there is. It makes it so much more complicated. I don't think it's a total lost cause, but I think we don't know what we're up against at this point.
Right, and if you want to prevent against people creating conspiracy theories about all this, you just have a video running 24/7. It's not complicated. Like, I literally thought my roommate's kid was stealing from my wallet, and I set up a webcam on the wallet, and I caught him in 5 fucking minutes.
Yeah.
So I'm just saying, like, here's all the U.S. fucking genius and
But there was
technology, and you can't have a video on his
There was
cell.
a mysterious malfunction with the cameras, Pat. That's
just
what
saying,
they're saying.
this
There's also
is-
Yeah, the security camera in his cell was made by the same company that makes the police body cams.
Yep.
Oh Jesus.
Do they also do the voting,
that was a joke.
voting machines?
Oh.
Let's just go full circle.
No,
Yeah.
but
Yeah,
Microsoft
they also
and the
make it
Pentagon
well.
are coming
Said
to
that
save
too
us
well.
on that
Did
end.
too well.
Yeah.
I'm not naive, but I bought that for a second. I was all like, oh no.
Yeah, they just if you're gonna kill somebody, the camera automatically goes off. It's
Well,
like the auto murder
But
off.
but here's,
Right.
here's the thing I want to touch
Yeah.
on though with
When
a
you pull their
civil
gun, the camera
5
goes
seconds
off.
before it
with
shoots.
civil litigation, the threshold is much lower than in a criminal complaint. So there is, but I believe Brook, you touched on this. There's going to be so many other creditors, people they owe money to. They're going to get first dibs to anything, and anything that's left over, hopefully it's more than scraps, are going to go, hopefully, to these innocent women that were subjected to horrors again. None of us can really comprehend, nor should any human being have to. So I mean, his death is.
But
It's
what you're-
tragic in the sense for these victims.
But you will always miss who he could have testified against. That will never be back. Nothing you can create will ever get that back.
To that point, where the fuck is Ghislaine Maxwell?
I have no clue.
Right? Does anybody know where she is? Because she is part and parcel of this thing. Her father, Robert Maxwell, was a Mossad agent. The third part of Whitney Webb's series fucking breaks down a lot about both Robert Maxwell and her. It would be my guess that she is in a comfortable chaise lounge somewhere with a big floppy hat and some sunglasses.
Well, you said Assad, so if you can tie that back to Tulsi, we'll hear about it. That's all I'm going to say.
I said Mossad.
I'm just
Mossad.
I
Those are
thought
my
you said
people.
Assad.
Those are my people. It's
Yeah.
okay. It's okay.
Yeah, she hasn't been seen. This article here says that she hasn't been seen since 2016. So many people
Wow.
are speculating that she might be in Tel Aviv. So yeah, it's been years. Nobody really knows where she is at. And I agree with you, Steve. I think she's living a very comfortable life right now.
Wow.
And unfortunately, I do not believe that she will be held to account because she too abused these women. She was also a sexual predator as well. So she not only groomed them and brought them to Jeffrey and these other men. She was a predator as well. She's a dangerous person, and we can only hope that she is caught, because somebody with this pattern of behavior, you can't expect them to then just suddenly stop acting this way. If you look at people that behave this way, they typically have a pattern of behavior throughout their lives in which they act in this deviated way.
And he definitely had a set pattern. Like, it was remarkable the amount of time Jeffrey Epstein spent on this hobby of his. So I'm reading this book, The Trafficking by Conchita, I can't think of her last name, I'm counting me. And so she's been reporting on this for quite some time. And she is, there's years in here where he's has appointments with these girls 3 times a day. Like, how do you get anything else done? That's all you're freaking doing.
Let me tell you. No, I'm just kidding.
Chime in, guys. But there's other people who like Ghislaine. There's Jean-Luc Fritz, Leslie Groff, Sarah Kellen, Nadia Markanova. Like there's other people who have never been arrested and never been charged, who are part of this. Haley Robeson, which is was one of the groomers, but she was young and she provided a lot of information. So that's kind of a gray area. But definitely Jean-Luc Brunel, who ran the modeling agency that brought these girls in, especially in New York, and a lot of the abuse was trafficked, I guess you would say, through that guy. Ghislaine, she's a citizen of UK, So it's the same deal with Julian Assange. You know, she'd have to be extradited, and I believe that would have to be under criminal, so it wouldn't happen in the civil case.
Right.
And you gotta imagine that she's got every resource and asset behind her, making sure that she doesn't talk. And if it comes close to her talking, then who knows? You know, like her dad died under mysterious circumstances on his yacht in the Virgin Islands. Like
that yacht was owned by Jamal Khashoggi's brother and I think Donald Trump.
Huh.
Jesus
Interesting.
Christ.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
How the fuck does this happen?
I'm
it's
hoping
amazing.
I'm hoping the pain in my head is a sign of a stroke, because that's just too much. That
The other question I have, and I don't want anybody to take this in any way as trying to put pressure on the victims at all. It's just a question of, aren't the victims do know who was there? I mean, because they were in the room. Are we not getting names out from them? I mean, I can understand why they would not want to do it and why they'd be scared, and that's a totally understandable thing. But I got to think that some information is coming out from the accusers, and why are we not hearing about other arrests in this case?
So, well, that's the other thing. Let's not forget that the British royal family is involved in this. Prince Andrew is a fucking headline all over the place. He was trending on Twitter. It's not like if you're Prince Andrew, you don't have access to your country's intelligence networks. It's not like... Yeah. It's not like he... Huh?
I'm sure they were threatened too. I think that they oftentimes do that to people. They say, "We'll kill your whole family."
Right.
You know, this if you speak out about this. So I think there's probably even more victims, without a doubt, that we even know of.
One of Epstein's original charges was witness tampering. That got dropped.
But so all these people see Epstein die, and now they're like, "Oh, now it's a great time to testify." Like that's not gonna happen.
Yeah.
Like these people are like that might have sent the message that saves it. That might be the whole point. I mean,
again, it falls back. It falls back on the civil case. If we can get enough depositions under the civil proceedings, that would be admissible, and being enough, if enough comes up, could relaunch a criminal probe into others involved. I know it's a long shot.
all
they
that stuff
just
can happen,
declassified.
But if a deposition when you're dead doesn't mean as much. I
No,
mean,
but they just released however many documents that implicated Bill Richardson and in
Bill Richardson
Gisley's
from New Mexico.
Yeah,
He's it.
Former governor.
I don't know.
yeah. Like the names were named on Thursday, and he dies overnight, Friday, Saturday.
Yeah.
How did I miss that?
But the other thing is, and this is the difference between a criminal investigation and facts exist, right? Maybe we don't have enough information to put Bill Richardson or Bill Clinton or Donald Trump in prison over this. But their political careers and their political influence should be over. Should be completely over.
I would say in the era of Trump and the era of Biden, that's not necessarily a given. Unfortunately,
I feel like that. I agree. Like you could survive anything.
Right. So I mean, we can't
With
count
marketing,
on that. That's
you
the
can,
old rules.
You can spend if you spend $10 million on marketing, you could probably get past anything.
Well, because
sliver.
you have
A sliver of
sliver.
the top one.
And all of that goes down to corporate control of the media. Because if you had an actual news organization investigating this,
Are you saying that this is not a news
You mean us?
This is not a news organization. I'm not. I have people who work for news organizations on the show.
Yeah.
Brooke works for a news organization. Taylor's Action Network is basically a news organization. Whitney Webb was just on.
I just want to say
Whitney?
I'm not a news organization. Don't suicide me.
Right?
But I doubt that we're
I
going to
wish you would
see
try.
Slow News Day get a channel on basic cable. Is what I'm saying.
That's next week.
I could make that happen.
That's next week.
I could make that happen. I would have to stop saying fuck.
Fuck.
Or 1 second pause.
But I know a guy.
Someone's got the fuck button. Just saying.
The whole show.
That's a whole different thing than college. Fuck button dick. Never.
No,
Don't
but-
moving on. Moving
But
on.
I mean, try
And
to.
let me point out, while we're still on this, I just tagged a bunch of you guys to a historically thread from last night, one of Isha's threads,
I'm on it.
where she's going through the civil suit against Ghislaine.
I'm trying to.
And, you know, your wishes are granted. She's there in this deposition. A shit ton of people are named. I mean, like everyone from like Al Gore to Bill Clinton, Naomi Campbell. You know, like all of the big ones that are on the flight logs. There's actual depositions that have lots of information and narrative about what was going on at the time. So there's some of that journalism that can be done that I like to do, where you're just going through like court documents and putting the story together from documentation.
Yeah, I have up on the screen right now
That's fine.
the Virginia Guffrey versus Ghislaine Maxwell
SDNY.
case.
And Maxwell claims that she has no idea, or that she barely remembers Virginia Guffrey. Like, she claims she has no idea who she is, which is interesting because you think that, again, if somebody was, I guess this is kind of an unrelated point, but if somebody was completely innocent, you would not settle out of court
Right.
and pay them large sums of money. You'd say, no, we're going to trial because I'm innocent and I didn't do this. But instead, they're settling out of court, which just points to guilt. And of course, I believe everybody, deserves a fair trial. That's what this country is, a founding principle of this country. However, at the same time, when these people are using money to manipulate the system and the justice system, it's really a huge problem. But I think it's interesting too that they met. Mar-a-Lago is mentioned here, so frequently.
Well, I think what we're seeing, and it's not just the Epstein case. You can tie this in with the college scandal that the Hollywood celebrities were doing. Is that this is the result of having a permanent aristocracy.
Yeah.
This is the result of having a small fraction of your society who are above the law and know they're above the law.
Well, and according to the reporting, are themselves, in fact, the law as well.
As
what
Bernie said, they write the laws.
What have we been saying for at least the last 3 or 4 years that we've been online? It's an oligarchy. It's a plutocracy. We're dealing, as you said, with an aristocracy of sorts. When you have a two-tier system of law, one for those who are wealthy and powerful, and one for everybody else. I'm not a big fan of John Edwards, but the two America things apply.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
Then what you're going to have is this type of consistent...
Deep cut.
John Edwards I actually was a John Edwards
I was
guy.
a huge John
Yeah.
Edwards fan
I think I opened a
until
wound.
he exposed
John
himself.
Edwards.
Well,
Oh,
I covered him briefly
Full
when I did
disclosure,
the
I worked
Nation
for his
Blog
campaign.
Team thing.
I was a fan, and say what you want about John Edwards. At
John
least
Edgar.
he only fucked one American he promised not to.
Well.
No, here's the thing. What I want to touch on though is
It's
there
a high percentage.
there is the have and the have-nots, without bringing too much socialism into play, even though I'd love to. There's a two-tiered system, and as long as it continues down this path, then we are going to have these issues consistently happening almost every day. So don't act shocked, don't act surprised, do something about it.
But the beauty of this thing is it exposes resistance Twitter to all their bullshit. like Twitter right now is literally a war between Clinton is the fucking worst fucking Epstein pedophile, and then Trump is like, no, and anyone that is paying attention is like, they both are fucking terrible.
Yes.
They're both terrible.
They're both fucking terrible. This is why we need to fix the problem. So
And-
this is an opportunity to reach the people on the right, or
Yeah,
Whatever.
and sort of what I was saying with tying a lot of this together is we need to fucking clean house.
Well,
And my hope is that the house cleaning happens within the criminal justice system.
Right.
Because the other option that I think you just have to be straight up and say it, we're in a country with more guns than people in it. And eventually, some of those people with guns are going to figure out who's really responsible. And then it's going to get ugly.
And for a disclaimer, that is in no way advocating for the violence against anyone on the face of the planet.
Don't put words in my mouth. No, I'm kidding. I agree with you. I'm not. I'm saying that you have to face reality at some point. You have to face reality at some point. You cannot keep putting this kind of pressure on a population and not expect there to be blowback.
Right.
Well, what's happening here is not like America-centric. It's not, it's global. You have a neoliberal kind of takeover of the world. Corporations are writing our fucking foreign policy, writing our trade deals, writing our,
foreign corporations.
Well, no, but global corporations. Global corporations.
Multinational.
They're writing our trade deal. They're the ones on like if you work at CAP, why are you on MSNBC? You fucking work. You're paid by the people to fucking trash Medicare for all and all these things that benefit people. Like our news organizations don't work for us. These people are not representing our interests. MSNBC and CNN need to get called out on all the people on their shows that don't represent us.
The concept of the fourth is
complicit in it.
Yes.
They're completely complicit in it because, again, let's remember these are millionaires. They're very out of touch people, and they are run by these oil companies, these very powerful establishments in our country. So they're basically, and Jimmy Dore says this often, they are employed by the very people that they are meant to investigate and to hold to account. So that's why you can only really depend on independent media and shows like this because we don't have any ties to any corporations. We can speak our minds and speak the truth, whereas these other organizations, those who work for them, cannot do so, or they're fired. If they're anti-war, if they speak the truth about Iraq or Afghanistan, they're immediately fired.
Or
so
you want to just cover that Bernie...
And that's why our country is not getting any better.
And there's not the soft control with us in terms of that thing where, I went to school with so-and-so, we were in the same, Greek organization or whatever the hell that crap is. There's all of that soft control that's associated with class and where you went to school and all that. And, we can short circuit that here. And we're not part of that.
And let me also just say that we need to start talking about these people, about not only the Joy Reids and Rachel Maddows, but the lesser punditry that shows up on these shows by the grifters out of Washington, like Scott Dworkin and who's Game Theory Boy. You know what I'm talking about.
Yeah. Yes.
We forget. And Jonathan Chait and Jonathan Capehart, and you can go on and on and on and on. These people need to be talked about with the same disgust that we're talking about Jeffrey Epstein with. These people are complicit in the murder of Americans, and they're complicit in the murder of a lot of poor people overseas. And their income depends on them continuing to be complicit in that. And the only difference is they're just either too lazy or too cowardly to carry out the crimes themselves, but they're perfectly happy to advocate for those who do.
My favorite Upton Sinclair quote lately is, it's difficult for a man to understand something when his salary depends on him not understanding it.
True.
I agree with that, but I think these people understand exactly what they're doing.
I think a lot of them do, but there's a great book called Spooks, How the CIA Fooled the Smartest Minds in Journalism. Finks, that's right, Finks. Yeah. And to what degree they're complicit and to what degree that they think that they're fighting for a cause really depends on what they're allowed to investigate in the first place and how long they've been around.
I want to touch on the biggest thing that I don't think it was started a minute ago with talking about the Fourth Estate. Its whole purpose was to be a check on the powers that be was to speak truth to power, to investigate, to end corruption, things of that nature. And if they were doing that, and if they could be held as credible doing their job as journalists, then we wouldn't exist. I think the fact that we exist is the biggest indictment of the compromise that the media finds when it's owned by multinationals, and it's prevented from doing its job. We would not exist if not for the fact that the fourth estate is useless at this point.
But
Right, we wouldn't have to exist either. We wouldn't have to, and they're trying to consistently shut it down and criticize YouTube because of it, and say that it's like dangerous, and that most of the shows that are on YouTube and other outlets that are not mainstream, that they're pushing conspiracy theories, and that they're either really far left or they're really far right.
Yeah.
We see that happen all the time, so they try to discredit it because nobody goes to YouTube to watch CNN clips.
Right,
Yeah, well, if you remember
right.
about 2 weeks ago, it was 2 or 3 weeks ago, that all of these celebrities came out and were like against Twitter. Do you remember that?
Oh,
like,
yeah.
Seth MacFarlane
Yeah,
was
we talked
posting,
about
"Get
it.
off Twitter."
We talked about it
and
on
that
the
lasted
show.
for about a day until everybody said, "Doorknob, you're posting this on Twitter.
no,
Go away."
Yeah, the Cap literally created. No, was it Cap or Third Way?
What's
Third
the
Way.
difference?
None.
Right.
Third Way created the narrative of Twitter is not real life, and then all of a sudden that blew up across all social media. It was on
Right.
literally MSNBC and CNN, and you cannot watch an hour of either of those shows without hearing Twitter is not real life in some form
Right.
or another.
And the one Seth MacFarlane is the one I saw, and I called because he said Twitter just gives you a warped sense of reality. And I said, this is coming from a guy worth $250 million who lives in Beverly Hills, but it's Twitter that's giving you a warped sense of reality.
Yeah.
Yeah, but their argument is Twitter's a small percentage of the population, but the news is literally like fucking 20 people.
Matty Iglesias had the exact same talking point. There were a bunch of other people, and I can't help it. I love to fucking punt Matty Iglesias every time I can. It's a thing, so I did. But it's that comes along with a fresh round of social media censorship that is on the either right before or during the week of UK Press Freedom Week, where they suspended the Unity for J account.
Yeah.
Ours, people of the 99%.
Jay's people of the 99% Facebook page got caught up in that. So all of this, when you take a step back and then you bring it back to what Bob Barr's trying to push through with the DOJ, with guaranteed lawful backdoor into encrypted services, and the push by even like of course Reuters, but mainstream outlets to spin it as it's pretty scary out there.
Well, they put it out there. There was a report last week about the Russian groups like to use hashtags that make fun of people all catchy. That's the entire world. Everyone that's upset about how things are right now is going to have they're going to get behind a catchy thing and they're going to be snarky. And they're like, no, beware of snark. Snark is Russian.
Yeah. Well, Kamala Harris destroyed. That was a hashtag they were pushing on there.
Yeah.
Meanwhile,
that's
every goddamn morning
Russian.
you wake up and there's another Moscow Mitch hashtag that's
Leningrad
definitely
Lindsay.
financed by Cap and ShareBlue and all of these monkeys.
Wit, intellect, and the ability to destroy someone else's argument is now
Russian.
okay.
I
like Tolstoy, but I don't think that applies.
Yeah, well, I mean, there are fewer and fewer Americans who have that capacity, so it's not a bad assessment.
Yeah. So I want to remind people right now.
We live in a fucking
I'm a
cartoon.
fucking idiot, right? Just take my word for that. Accept that premise. It's crazy. It's crazy.
I will confirm.
But my account got shared as much as the entire Russian propaganda on Twitter.
Yes.
So, did I cost the entire Democratic Party?
Behold the power of handsome Patrick.
This did not happen. right? I shared an opinion, and that's what happened in 2016.
And you got kicked off of Twitter for it.
I did.
You caused the downfall of Western civilization, you son of a bitch.
I'll take it.
Has Peter Dow ever apologized to you for?
We've talked. But
Oh, really? You have to tell
we
me
actually
about
have
that.
talked, but I don't want to talk about that right now.
Okay.
Anyway.
We'll have to go
Unrelated to
off
me,
on that. Yeah.
I want to have these people's brilliant opinions because I'm not brilliant. Brooke, say something.
So, you guys are talking around, I think, one of the biggest reasons why it's so important, or the whole reason why it's so important to push back constantly and consistently on the absurd Russiagate narrative, because they're using it to undermine our ability, normal people's ability, to just talk about what matters to us.
Right.
And you saw Joe Scarborough out there today and say, this whole Epstein thing is ... Russia. And I forget who it was that said that Russia was responsible for his dead interns. I love that. That's got to be used. Good joke.
It's a great joke. That is a solid
it's
joke.
not my point is, it's not a sideshow. It is the main event. It is what it's the obstacle that they're putting in front of us, and if we don't bust through that barricade, then it's just going to be there in our way, like forever. I mean, the Cold War lasted a long time the first time around, and it sucked. It was awful.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know, but I would imagine, and it's kind of crazy because it is very xenophobic too, what they're pushing. And also another point, we were talking about whether or not we really think that these reporters and journalists actually believe this, and I kind of worry that they think, okay, we'll do whatever we can to stop Trump by any means necessary. So I could see that as potentially being a reason why they would want to continue to push this, like Rachel Maddow, and also because I think that people can train themselves to believe in something if they really, really want to believe it. So I kind of do think that she may have believed in this. I don't know. I know that she's an extremely intelligent person. I mean, she's a Rhodes Scholar. She's not dumb. She's very, very brilliant.
Well, let me just
definitely a distraction. It's something that's used to discredit anything, and I think that the Russians are probably sitting back and laughing at us, and rightfully so, that we are creating this crazy narrative and we're obsessing over it when they've done nothing, and we know that. And it's amazing that this report comes out and we're still talking about it. I feel like we're going to be talking about this for a long time unless we do kind of push back. But I think one indicator of our pushing back, the people pushing back, was on, and this sounds petty, but on Twitter today, I was happy to see that the hashtag Epstein murder was trending.
they spelled it
To kind of show that we are not buying into this bullshit, and it's offensive that you think that we will buy into this.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but let me
it
say
helps that the FBI came out and said we're going to investigate this as a murder. I mean, that's a double-edged sword. The FBI investigating this as a murder is like,
oh, look, all the evidence points to Julian Assange.
yeah.
And
And by the way, if you don't think Julian Assange is in danger of being wheeled out on a stretcher,
oh my gosh,
We've been talking about that.
no,
Yeah.
yeah.
He's, but one thing to keep in mind. First off, I do believe that Rachel Maddow knows exactly what she's doing, but let's be wary of academic credentials. They are not a sign of how intelligent you are. They are a sign of how privileged you are. Not a lot of people from like East LA getting on that Rhodes Scholar list. So Rachel knows exactly what she's doing. Joy Reid knows exactly what she's doing. I mean, literally, if these people actually believed what they were saying, they would be too stupid to feed themselves.
that's the thing, though, is the profits. I mean, what was it Maddow makes an episode? $3 million or something of that nature?
No,
Forget
she
the
makes
size.
$30,000 a day.
There we go. And for the incentives there to keep up this this gaslighting, this amping up the Democratic faithful.
Mm-hmm.
And at the end of the day, what it misses out on is the actual corruption issues between both parties. It brings up a criminal justice system that is just negligent and criminal in its own right, a social system in which we have institutional and cultural racism, misogyny, etc. Instead of highlighting the real issues, we're talking about a bunch of hackers, potentially from Russia, with Vladimir Putin's blessing and maybe back massages, going in and purporting this massive corruption. It's people are just, they need to stop. It's giving me a headache.
But the other thing to keep it. The other thing to keep in mind is that people know that something's wrong.
Mm-hmm.
People know that something's wrong, and so when you come up with some of these conspiracy theories, Pizzagate or whatever, that these people latch onto because they want to find out why everything is so fucked up.
Listen to independent media. We're going to help you understand that without diving so far down the rabbit hole you don't know which way is your elbow and your asshole.
And the
right, but Joe, uninformed person that's been watching mainstream media forever, they don't want to learn all the crazy. They don't want to go down the rabbit hole. They just want to know, like you can hit them with like the reality. We have lots of facts on this stuff. Hit them with that.
Right.
That's what I'm saying.
And
like,
it's a reason.
Like,
it's a reason why candidates like Tulsi and Bernie and Sema Hernandez exist, because people are so starved for just. Look at what Bernie did with conservatives, with libertarians who.
Joe Rogan.
Yeah, Joe Rogan
killed it.
This is the flip side of it: is people are smart enough to recognize the truth. And it's one of the big. Well, see, and this is one of the myths that we've been sold. That I think we accept. We've been told this ever since school, ever since our civics class in middle school, told us that you can't have real democracy because that would result in mob rule. Okay. It's the continual dismissal of huge portions of the population as being able to self-govern, and this is the overriding ethos of people in Rachel Maddow's big club that we can't get into. And I've been part of this. I used to work on Wall Street. I used to work for Steve Jobs. I've been in the room when
used
people
to
are
work
talking
for the
about
Young
it.
Turks.
First of all, they literally use the words the smarts and the stupids. Right. They literally do that. And if you watch, like, which I can't do, but if you watch like old episodes of The West Wing, you can see this it just bleeds off of every pixel of that video.
I'm a Sorkin fan. I'm sorry.
Oh, God.
I enjoy The West Wing.
You can't handle the truth.
I'm going to say something pithy.
Lawrence O'Donnell's enough that I know.
Yeah,
the truth.
Yeah, but the
changed
big,
all of it.
Thanks.
but
I appreciate that. Here's the bus. Here's me.
These people see that they are the wise ruling elite, and we are basically viewed as livestock.
Okay, let me touch on this. Let me touch on this because I'm tired of this. Like, we gotta condone ignorance. Okay, there's nothing wrong.
I'm not condoning it.
Hold on, there's nothing wrong with aspiring to be a little bit smarter than you were yesterday.
Yep.
And I always saw and I'm not necessarily agreeing with the entirety of West Wing, but I do like the fact that people aspire instead of being Bruce Willis or name any other random action
Did you just
star.
call me Bruce Willis?
Woo!
Motherfucker. It's gonna get out.
Bruce, motherfucker.
It's gonna get out.
No, getting back to my point though, aspiring to be a little bit smarter than you were yesterday. There's nothing wrong with that. Now, I don't believe in the preachiness that Sorkin pushed in those things.
Yeah.
I agree with you, but there are stupid people and there are smart people, and it's to bridge that gap and bring everybody a little bit closer together, not critique and mock those that are less intelligent, but to help get them to your level and help them understand the world as best as you can.
So let me say this, because I have engaged in MAGA bashing on Twitter a lot.
Haven't we all?
We all have. But I literally I called some guy out today who literally was calling the MAGAs a bunch of cousin fucking mouth breathers. And then I look on his TL, and his next thing is Bernie is a fraud.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, you don't get to criticize MAGAs while working to support the system that creates them.
Right.
And the thing is, yes, there are some truly dumb people. There are some truly mean and evil people.
Yes.
But the majority of the people, the majority of the population, I will put this in any southern state as well, are people who have been intentionally miseducated and misled their entire lives.
But that's the argument any Democrat is going to make. But no one has a better argument for it than Bernie in those states.
Yes.
That's all I'm saying. Like,
And Bruce Willis. Bruce Willis has a solid
look, I love
argument.
Tulsi too. There are lots of people I love, but Bernie has the credit there.
Yeah.
For sure. I'm not going to get political on who I like here. Bernie. I'm just saying.
No, this can kind of, this brings up my fallback position, and that is, I don't personally believe that voting in a rigged system inside a duopoly, particularly at the federal level, is a substantive avenue for realistic change. I think that participation in local elections is something that you have a little bit better odds of doing if you can organize around the developers or organize around the tech monopoly, you know. Yeah. And I don't think that you can have an organized or activated citizenry that has to constantly move every 18 months. You know, because you've got to have rent control, you've got to have shit like that enables a community to be a fucking community, you know. But I do not see a way that Bernie Sanders goes cleanly through the Democratic primary process in the convention.
I still am of the strong belief that they will do anything to stop Bernie, even at the risk of exposing the whole game, because these guys will not give up their gravy train. And we have to be ready and have a plan in place for what are we going to happen when they do that. My plan is, because I'm a Wisconsin native, is I'm going to be in Milwaukee for that convention. And we're either going to have a big party or we're going to have a really big something else.
68 all over again?
Yeah.
No, so it'll make 68 look like a kid's birthday party.
Yeah, because the technology and the way that they're allowed to beat our asses is increasing.
Wait, another disclaimer. There's no planning for anything negative to occur at any convention down the road. This is a hypothetical situation.
What happens?
This is, okay,
This
go.
is just stating what happens, because in 68, remember, they had a good economy. The economy was booming in the 60s. There are a lot of happy people, and we had a functioning middle class in the 70s, in the 60s, and still Chicago happened. What is going to happen when they pull this shit in this kind of economy, in this kind of split income type of thing?
So to me, that's the danger. We know you got a third of the hard left ready to fucking decapitate people.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
I have a bit that I'm working up on that, which I hope we'll be able to get to, by the way.
That's not all the left, but most of the left are so infurious they're done with bullshit. So how many people that are progressives and Democrats will be willing to tolerate someone like Joe Biden or Kamala Harris, the worst fucking candidate ever? Like Kamala Harris, I don't even want to get into that. I assume everyone watching this knows how terrible she is, but I'm in California. She's terrible. She has no shot at winning this state because we're going to fucking voice our opinions on her like crazy. But fuck her entirely.
And I just want to go on record.
I don't know if I have another point, but fuck her entirely is my biggest point.
But let it be said.
People in prison for... She put parents in prison for not putting their kids in school.
No, they were already but she also argued against the state. The state was like, release these prisoners of silly marijuana laws, and she went to, these are choices they make.
It's tourist
She
season.
went to.
I've got another
She
disclaimer.
made the decision to fight them, to keep these prisoners in jail, and argued in that moment, in that argument, to keep them in jail because it was free labor for the state. So that doesn't get erased no matter what she says.
Right, and she was proud of that too.
She's proud of her record. She said so.
Proud. She's done. It's just time.
And for the record, we don't, and for anybody picking up on this who may be centrist or right-wingers, we are not attacking Senator Kamala Harris for any other reason other than her failed policies and checkered history when it comes to her prosecutorial record.
I think she's also a shitty human being.
Okay,
Yeah, and
I'm trying here.
She also covered up
I'm trying.
shit from the Catholic priest.
Yeah, she covered up pedophile scandal.
Look, this is like, to progressives, there's a file of obvious shit that we all have, but there's a huge file of stuff that anyone running against her has.
And remember,
has not been talked about.
And
yet.
remember, these are the people who just clutch their pearls over the mythical Oppo research that was yet to come out on Bernie Sanders if he got the nomination, as if Hillary Clinton would have something on an opponent and not use it.
They've had 2 years.
But with Kamala Harris, these are the same people who are in denial about what is going to happen if she has the nomination. And what is going to happen? We are going to see Willie Brown 24/7 on our television screens.
For those outside of California.
Yeah. So I really never.
I make this case because I'm a terrible person, but so people know, the case from the right will be that she slept her way to the job. I'm not saying she did, but that is kind of like, you look at the history of her career in politics, it's going to get brought up from the right a lot. Yeah. So you guys are all safe from that.
Well,
I brought it up.
I did this disclaimer earlier. I'm good.
But
that is going to be used against her a lot.
But let me say this: I'm not criticizing her for who she slept with.
Oh no,
that's between her and
that
Willie,
is what
and
the
that
right
is
has.
And nobody should bring the right. Of course, is going to
no
pull
slut
out the
shaming
fake
or
Christian
any
bullshit.
type of.
But we shouldn't
shaming.
live in a world where we think the right arguments aren't realistic.
No,
like, we need to talk about what is going to, like. You can't be a Democrat and say, "Shut up about everybody," and then let's just go to the fucking regular election, general election, and not talk about.
And the reason that I bring this up is not because of any sexual impropriety, because who the fuck cares?
I don't care.
It's mine. There is one person who did come out and say very clearly that she was given appointments she did not earn because of that relationship. That person's name is Willie Brown.
Yeah.
There are quotes from him saying that he put her on commissions and gave her appointments that she didn't earn because she was his girlfriend. That is something that is just going to be pounded into the ground.
So it's a level of Lauren Steiner cattiness that I don't personally want to sink into on the show, because I could.
It should be policy.
I have a friend who was Willie Brown's chief of staff, and I could call him at any moment and have him come down on the show and spill. And I'm not going to do that.
Sure, we're just talking about if we're talking.
Just have me back for that one.
It should be policy based. This is
awesome.
this any argument.
I'll have him on your show
for any integrity and credibility amongst us in the independent media. Hold on, and amongst the left, because we constantly get assailed for our integrity and such. It needs to be policy driven. Focus on what's wrong with these candidates, not their sexual orientation, their race, their religion, their lack of whatever. It has to be policies. And with Senator Harris, her prosecutorial record is enough of an indictment in and of itself. You can add on or subtract whatever else you want to show that she is not fit to be president of the United States.
She's not fit to get the nomination.
Let me reframe this too, because the fact that she's used that kind of networking, shall we say, to rise through the ranks, that's a weakness. She didn't have to do the work. And I think you saw this when Tulsi attacked her, whatever, during the debate. Kamala's not accustomed to having to answer for herself.
Yep.
She's accustomed to being a prosecutor who's up there with everyone behind her, the judges behind her, and she just, gets her way. She is not used to being challenged, and she is not used to being asked questions, and she did not like it.
How did she not have an answer ready?
Right.
She didn't
That's
answer
the
him.
whole thing.
And when she had time to think about it, she went with Assad apologist instead of addressing the policy. So that is a weakness that needs to be exploited rather than seen as, like going after somebody for sexual improprieties. It's just
right.
The only thing that I will disagree with is questions of electability are fair game. And what we saw with Kamala is that when she was challenged, she collapsed.
Mm-hmm.
She was unprepared, and it is because she's hired the same amateur hour staffers that caused Hillary that helped Hillary with her faceplant in 2016. These people do not know how to win elections.
Can I just add that I know people that worked with her that also, before all this terrible stuff about her, recently, said she's terribly unprepared all the time and she's lazy. I mean, I don't want to... Lazy is a thing that gets attributed to whatever. I'm not going there.
She's
unprepared. It's not about that, but she's incredibly unprepared. Look at her. She came out of the debates with an attack on Biden and wasn't prepared to answer a question about her own record on that. Like, how are you that person? That shines like so bright to anyone paying attention.
Hey, let's talk about Joe Biden.
No. No, but I will.
If it would have helped his career, he would have taken Abby.
That was awesome.
I will hop over a candidate though, because the candidate that's raised the most money while polling at a fucking deep like sixth.
Are we talking Buttigieg level?
Yeah,
Mayor
yeah,
Pete.
CIA Pete.
Yeah.
How? Yeah.
I number 2 in funds worked. Let's go over Pete's background real quick, okay? His father was a Jesuit, studying to be a Jesuit priest. They pulled him away from the priesthood and put him at a nice teaching gig at Notre Dame University. Pete was educated at a private Jesuit school, where he then went to Harvard, where he worked on the
ran for college and got 0.0% of the black vote.
Where he got 0.0% of the black vote.
That's impressive.
He worked on the John Kerry campaign and went immediately to McKinsey and Associates, which brags about being in an open working relationship with the CIA. He went from that to Navy intelligence, which screams, I am a CIA operative. And he's still active duty Navy intelligence. His qualifications as a cherry-cheeked little imperialist are that he looks sincere, he speaks in 6 languages, and if you criticize him, it's a hate crime.
Yeah.
Well, I think with or without that, we know. I mean, he's on the record as having gone to these billionaire-sponsored Stop Bernie meetings before the campaign started, and that alone, to me, is a disqualifier. Because if you are there just to stop the guy with the most popular and most compassionate policies in the country, you're not fit to hold office. This is not a game anymore.
Right.
Well, can we also bring up his former police chief? I mean, Steve, you let me know that beautiful story. He's supposed to be reaching out to everybody. I mean, what's going on there?
South Bend's police chief was African American. Well, he still is. He's still a black guy. But he is no longer the police chief. He came to Mayor Pete with evidence of open and hostile racism with the officers on his force. He presented this evidence to Pete Buttigieg, and Pete Buttigieg fired him. Right. Yeah.
Do you want that as president?
He's absolutely unpresidential, but even if you sort of like the guy...
It's a hate crime.
I have a lot of hate crimes, but...
Don't you know?
Hate speech with Pat the Berner.
Hello! Fuck you, black people. Sorry,
Well,
did I just say that? I'm sorry.
So
Top
it's
10.
in Pat's
No,
rider to have a driver from
I'm a
his house
sarcastic
to the
guy.
location
Right.
and be driven back to his house, and it's also in his rider to be walking distance from a liquor store.
I need mimosas. No, but Buttigieg, though, like, how are you that guy? Like, his whole career so far, he's not you can still think he's not a bad guy. You can hear his words and think he's okay. He means well. But he's been in office for, 4 years as a mayor, or 6 years or something? He's a mayor of a small town, and his best response is, I learned from my terrible decisions.
Yeah.
Like, that's all he has. Learning from bad mistakes.
My biggest issue.
We need something much stronger than that.
Yes.
And I was very suspicious of him at first because I've never heard of him before when he first announced that he was running. And then I found out he was from this small town in Indiana, and I thought, how did this person rise to popularity so quickly? And then it dawned on me, he's probably planted there by the CIA. Of course, he has ties to the CIA, still does. And I will say this, anybody who once worked for the CIA or was involved with them, they always are and always will be. But yeah, I was very suspicious of that. However, you're right, he is a very likable person, and that kind of is part of a larger issue that many politicians, many people who rise to the top typically have that personality type where they're a little bit sociopathic. I'm not a psychologist, but they're willing to step on other people's toes for their own personal gain. So that's why we consistently have leaders like this who are not really looking out for the people who they should be, but themselves and their corporate interests. And he's a perfect example of that, masking behind a kind face and likable demeanor.
Dead-eyed, Luciferian, pedophile psychos.
We
I don't
definitely got
think
some.
his
We got
face
some
is out.
clips. Apparently, we got some clips that are gonna be going up.
His face is not that likable to me.
I don't think he's never struck me.
But that's just me. No, I
mean,
totally
he's
understand. We're being
he's a
assholes.
likable guy, like people like him, and he's like young and fresh, and he's able to. He's obviously, able to win over some people.
Oh,
with
yeah.
that.
Yeah, the billionaires.
Iowa gets
Yeah,
him.
but we're still a little bit different than the majority of the population still, because we have a mentality of questioning more and being a little bit skeptical of what we hear in the mainstream, where others are not so much. But back to, and I just want to touch on this real quick, Kamala Harris too, when she was called out by Tulsi, she went so low, and then went to, this goes back to her unpreparedness, and then just attacked Tulsi and said, what? She's like 1 or 2% in the polls. Just like totally attacked her and deflected, and was not ready to address the issue at all. Yet at the same time, she was saying, "Oh, I was prepared, to be attacked because I'm a top tier candidate." If anybody else said that,
Not anymore.
it would have been over.
And she got to
Hydra
wake
kicking
up
in
the
too.
day after that to 1% of the black vote.
Imagine if Bernie Sanders referred to
1%.
himself as a top tier candidate.
I am a top tier candidate. That's the most narcissistic thing I've ever heard in my life. He's just like Donald
shouting.
Trump.
And he's shouting. Why does he always shout?
Yeah,
You
the
scared
shouting.
my kid.
Yeah, but in the debates, she also took the heat from Tulsi and tried to pivot it to Biden,
Yeah.
which was awful.
Well, no,
Because-
that shows me.
Like-
That shows me that the donors are more secure with her than they are with Biden. When she had the green light to attack him on the first debate, it was like, okay, man, the Clinton people have given her permission to go after fucking creepy Uncle Joe,
Yeah.
and she's gonna
Everyone
do
has
that.
full
And
permission.
she got a big ass bump from that,
Yeah.
and then she walked into that second debate,
And
fucking
she just-
with that I'm a
Landmine.
goddamn mean girl, and fucking why don't you look at my fucking tiara, motherfucker?
Right.
And while she was leaning forward to show it off to people, she got hit in the jaw several times.
And Tulsi is the model, I think, for having kind of some shitty stuff in your record and
Getting
addressing
past
it. Okay?
Yeah, and Kamala didn't even turn it around in the
honestly,
debate.
if Kamala had come out and got ahead of this and said, yeah, as a prosecutor, I did some stuff. That was my job as a prosecutor. I don't think we should be doing that anymore.
No, she could survive this so much better than that.
The thing
Which
is,
is awful.
she would have. I don't want to help the Kamala campaign
No,
because,
I don't.
but
I
it's
don't
too
want
late for them to make this story anymore. She could have said, as a prosecutor, I was part of this system. And I realize how broken it is, and now I want to fix it, and I want to change and, you know, make up for some of the things I did as a prosecutor.
Mm-hmm.
Instead,
Issue
she said
over.
she.
We live in a world where
I agree.
where all of that saved Biden from going down. Like that's the reality. Like because that was the story, Biden didn't tank.
Yeah.
You know, Biden would have gone down 5 points probably.
Mm-hmm.
Had it not been for that being the overriding story.
But poor kids are just as smart as white kids. I mean,
It's
Yeah,
true.
I mean
I'm just saying.
You know who I don't like?
That's just dumb.
I don't like that Margaret Thatcher. She just grinds my gears.
We really need to choose truth over facts.
We need to choose truth over facts.
Oh, levity. I'll miss you, Uncle
How do
Joe.
I have to pee?
How well? Usually when the body consumes liquids.
He
Oh,
was-
hey, Pat, could you go around the corner? Oh, okay.
It's too late. But yeah, so I mean, at the end of the day, we can start picking apart these Democratic candidates based strictly off policy, make our arguments based off policy. We could subtract the stuff, and I could totally get where you were coming from earlier. You know, that is going to be a constant question if she's in the general. But at the end of the day, we have to be almost better than anybody in the mainstream. We have to be better than the right when it comes to independent media. We have to be a step above. So I think if we keep the arguments centered on policy, their past in the public eye, or contingent upon private industry if need be, and we focus on that, then our argument is sound, it's credible, and no one can be like, oh, that's a left-wing whacker right there.
But they're
I know they'll try.
No, but they're removing our ability to do that because they're all pretending to have these policies that they don't support.
Yeah.
So you have to focus on policy, you have to focus on record, and you have to focus on character.
Well, and focusing on record is a personal attack. Focusing on character is an operation planned by Vladimir Putin and executed through the or Venezuela or Iran. Because there's hackers everywhere, and it's all the places we want to bomb, which is super weird.
I will stop going after candidates' characters when the resistance stop bringing up Bernie's 1972 rape essay. Until then, I'm not unilaterally disarming.
I'm not unilaterally disarming. Is that your I will absolutely take general money or corporate money in the general election?
No.
No, I'm fucking. I don't know how much longer we're gonna hang out. I feel like maybe we should do a round of final thoughts and then take a couple of questions. Let's start with the folks what called in, because you know they called in. Taylor, go ahead, please. And thank you so much, by the way, for hanging out today. And you can find and here, like, before you plug the thing, I want to say that after last Wednesday's vigil, Taylor is one of the more competent moderators that I have ever fucking worked with as a panel host. She was fucking incredibly on point, and fucking please watch the Free Assange Vigil series on Wednesdays at 10 p.m. Eastern Time, 7 p.m. Pacific Time, and I will let Taylor do the rest of the plugging for that when she gets to it. But man, thank you.
Thank you so much for that, Steve. I appreciate that. I enjoyed moderating with you. It was a lot of fun, and we did have 5 people that we had to moderate, so it wasn't something that was easy, but we kept everybody on point, so I couldn't have done it without you, and I thank you so much for joining us in on that. So for my final thoughts here, again, thank you so much for having me on. It was nice to meet the 3 of you. Good to see you again, Brooke. So I don't know, of course, I have an activist group with Andrew Smith, Action for Assange. I don't know if we quite touched on, or earlier in the show you guys touched on the new revelations that were put forward by Consortium News. But I just want to say that...
haven't got there yet.
You have not? Okay.
No.
So I just wanted to say that more information came out that This man's name is Mark Davis. He is an Australian journalist, and he was with Julian Assange throughout the overwhelming majority of his interactions with the New York Times and the Guardian when he was leaking, I believe, the Afghan, or when they were publishing the Afghan war logs, and also the leaks that were provided by Chelsea Manning. And basically, he was able to verify that everything that the New York Times and the Guardian had said about Assange was completely false. It was one of those organizations who actually leaked a password that allowed, that was still working, that allowed for the original publication to be made public, that had a lot of sensitive information that Julian Assange spent his weekend redacting while everybody else was enjoying their weekend vacation. And he also said that basically, the Guardian and the New York Times tried to say that they wanted to distance themselves from Assange the entire time. That was absolutely not true. Of course, I'm giving a brief overview here. I encourage everybody to go check that out if they have not already once the show wraps up, because it's very important to watch, and I know we'll probably be discussing it on the vigil on Wednesday. And as far as Jeffrey Epstein, I think it's unfortunate, extremely unfortunate, and that's an understatement, that he is dead and the trial will not go forward. And I can only say that I hope that we can potentially learn something from this. I think the best thing that we could do is to continue to have this be talked about in the media, and us in the independent media need to continue to address this and look into these documents, as Brook has said. I think that's a great way to keep this alive and well and in the public sphere, because it's important that even though a case will not, you will not see a criminal trial, let's keep this discussion alive and well. Again, thank you so much for having me on. I enjoyed this discussion. I loved being on the show as always, and it was nice meeting you all.
Where can people find you, Taylor?
Okay, you could find me, my personal Twitter, at TaylorM_Hudak, and that's me personally. And you could also follow Action for Assange, my organization, at Action_for Assange.
Rad. All right, thank you so much for hanging out. We'll be talking soon. Brook?
Yeah, so I grabbed the timestamp on that Consortium News piece with Mark Davis. It's at 46 minutes out of, this is 2.5 hour long Consortium News live broadcast. But scrub to about 45 minutes and you'll get the intro to this amazing piece of video that is gives you an incredible insight into what was happening behind the scenes and how that story is so different from what's being put forward by people who are trying to prosecute him. Tomorrow night, see, today's Saturday. Tomorrow night, 7 p.m. I'll be on Progressive News Network with my producer and colleague Rick Spizak. And we'll be talking about Epstein, this new piece of information from Mark Davis, and a little bit of this and that. We're going to do an extended hour, 7 to 8, going over some of these pieces, parts. And I hope to pull out some more details from this civil suit that can be shared with the audience. You can find me and the link to Progressive News Network in my Twitter profile, which is I'm on Twitter as Brook Hines. You can search me and find me that way, Brook without an E, and it's also Nashville_Brook, at Twitter. So yeah, and this is these conversations, they're casual. And they might not seem this way, but I think they're super important. It's really important for us to do this in order to build our own network and our own presence, but it also helps us understand and kind of feel our way around where everyone is at, trying to work through these issues. So this was like super amazing and good to do today.
Fan-fucking-tastic.
Great.
Well, thanks, dude, so much, Brook. I love it when I get to chat with you. You're a wealth of knowledge, and yeah, it's always a good time. There's videos on this channel. The last conversation that Brook and I had about Seth Rich was incredible. There's more idiocy from Michael Isikoff that I can go into at a different point. But yeah, please go check out Brook's show, and check out her Twitter. She's, again, a fucking wealth of knowledge. It's awesome. So thanks so much, Brook. And we will talk soon. Here's the thing. I know I just had it. Alright. Ruby. Bye-bye. So yeah, if we should probably wrap here soon. But if anyone has any questions, throw them. Do you think Bernie backed HRC and has a muzzle on him by the DNC because he and his family have been threatened? Who should progressives fall behind after Bernie gets screwed again?
After Bernie, it's guillotine. There's no, like...
After Bernie, it's guillotine.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just going to say, like, you screw Bernie over, like, there's nobody now left. Like, who else can win? Like, let's just be realistic about this. I love Tulsi, too, and, like, a lot of people, but... If Bernie can't win, Tulsi can't win. We just know that.
Yeah.
That's just reality. So
we'll
just
look,
figure it out.
I just want to disagree with Pat, because my plan is we have a fair and public trial and then the guillotine. So
Okay.
very French
yeah, no,
Revolution.
we don't
Yeah.
guillotine right away.
Yeah.
I mean, we
I
run some justice.
Yeah.
think we've already spun past the point of no return with or without Bernie, because we all know how this is going to conclude. I'm not advocating or do I condone violence against anybody for any specific purposes.
No,
let me do my
a
disclaimer.
Nerf guillotine. It just hits the
Right.
neck and bounces off.
I'm
And
not
like,
so much-
that's 3 points.
It's about
And
to
then we
be.
hang them.
It's about to be for what I'm about to say.
It's like
The
a
balkanization in this country and the fracturedness of this country is leading to a violent, and it's already starting to bubble up in different areas where you're having these left versus right issues and things of that nature, where there's actual violence occurring. We're past the point of no return. If Bernie, it's kind of like the environment at this point. If Bernie can get elected, we can have a progressive Congress, or a socialist Congress, or a green Congress. Then you can cauterize the wound. It's not going to bring it back to everything's hunky-dory, peachy keen. We got a lot of work to do to fix things. But I don't think this is a situation anymore of, can we stop this from happening? It's at what point, when is this going to happen?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But you have a lot of layers of, like, what's okay. Like, if Bernie wins, it's okay, and then we'll see what happens. But when Bernie doesn't win and the Democratic Party is known to be fucking against him, like, you have a whole nother level of, like, how does the public react to that? Like, how does the public react to...
So I would like to point out...
Suddenly Warren, like, wins by a landslide or something. Like, lots of awkward... Like, we need to know... We need an open transparency, a transparent process. If that doesn't happen, you're inviting a lot of stuff. So make it as transparent as possible.
We've got Alex Padilla as the Secretary of State here, right?
Terrible...
I would like to point out that I have access to not only health care and a $1.9 million vehicle, but I have real and genuine access to a large working wood shop, and I'm just saying, like, on a production,
the wood shop.
on a production level, it is theoretically possible.
How's your blacksmith?
To aid. You don't need.
So you're saying we should wood chip him?
No. I said wood shop, not wood
it's
shop.
This is all sarcastic. No person uses this against us.
Although I have said instead of eating the rich, we should compost the rich because that way they would finally serve a fucking helpful purpose.
They're too toxic.
You think? I bet it could break down pretty good.
This is actually something I checked into because those of you who follow me on Twitter know I'm very into parrots and bird rescue and birds in general. So my thing was to go over to India when I'm dying to the Zoroastrians and feed the vultures. But it turns out that human beings are too fucking toxic and the vultures are getting sick. We're making vultures sick.
That's brilliant. That is.
I'm
of course we are
shocked, but I'm not. Because who's going to eat Nira?
I'm not even going to.
I mean, no, that's a whole personal.
Right there.
I didn't mean to get personal.
Right there.
I just meant like on another level.
No, I was shocked by the question for the consumption reasons, for the thought that
Pornhub has some weird fetish shit.
You what now?
Never mind.
Yeah, the ladies left the room and Pat's in there with like, hey, let me tell you about some sick shit there.
Who's gonna eat Nira?
Hey-o.
Just hey.
Hey.
Time out.
Hey.
Oh, fuck, I need a drink. Woo.
So basically, and I could not mass produce, but develop a pattern and set up a handful of jigs in this shop and have production line like
Hypothetically.
IKEA teens.
Hypothetically.
IKEA teens. Maybe.
I think it would be not a bad idea to
build your own in a box.
To have a few mock ones that we bring to protest.
But so all this
that's
all
a really
this
good idea.
being used against us right now. Like there's the whole like anything happens, like
we just
people on the left that are mad should just like
be quiet.
We're gonna be blamed for anything that happens against centrists. I'm just saying this right now. Like right now, this video is going to get used against all of us.
We'll just say it was Russia.
Yeah,
it was bots.
But I mean, that's the world we're in. Like they're gonna, like anyone mad is going to be used against the crazy person that's mad.
Yeah.
I just wanted to be on the record. I said that. Asterisk. But
asterisk.
That's
yeah,
the real
no,
world.
I'm not encouraging violence. This is me working on a bit. I'm going to incorporate this into some stand-up. The fact that like doing a whole, how do we decide who goes first? Well, let me solve that for you. It's guillotine in a box. Now you can go to your local oligarch and not have to wait in line. That kind of
efficiency.
Thing. Yeah.
But
yeah.
I mean, I do think that when you say we're denouncing violence, you have to make it clear what that is. Okay. Holding Hillary accountable for her record is not violence.
Yes.
Even though I've seen it called violence by resistors.
Or misogyny.
I also don't think property crime is violence.
No.
I draw the line at when people actually start getting hurt. But at this point, we have had enough things stolen from us, just outright in the open stolen from us, that a property crime becomes legitimate civil disobedience.
Right. So I come back to almost always the Martin Luther King quote that a riot is the language of the unheard.
Yeah.
And I don't see a way around violent revolution if they make peaceful revolution impossible. I think that was one of Kennedy's. Like you can't keep passing laws that limit and restrict protests like that. You can't have something like Taft-Hartley on the books that prohibits general strikes. You can't have something like FBI documents circulating around saying that if you don't believe the official narrative, you are now a potential domestic terrorist.
Yeah.
Also,
why we should be very wary of pushing to get these white supremacist shooters prosecuted under terrorism laws and expanding terrorism
And
laws.
they just, the FBI just asked for an expansion of laws to include and incorporate all kinds of domestic terrorism.
Yeah.
That's in the article.
And they will have one white supremacist that they hold up at a show trial, and then they'll turn right on the left.
Absolutely, because that happens every single time.
Look what happened with Alex Jones getting banned from Twitter, right?
Thank you! I have the same fucking opinion about deplatforming.
Yeah.
Dude, I have
think
battled with good friends over the ability to fucking protect monopolies to decide what is and isn't speech.
Now, I think that, in my opinion, Alex Jones should be deplatformed because he harasses and he incites violence, and he's actually caused people to commit suicide by slandering them on air. My problem is having a for-profit corporation make that decision instead of a judge.
Mm-hmm.
I agree 100%. If he's going to lose his ability to broadcast, let there be a process for that other than he's fucking too mean or too crazy. Or
and I think the next two should be deplatformed is CNN.
I think MSNBC is a close second with Fox.
Just line them up. Fox, MSNBC, CNN, NBC, ABC, CBS, New York Times, Washington Post.
Here's two lines. You walk through that door, you get deplatformed. You walk through that door, there's a guy with a guillotine in a box.
Yeah.
All right. And he's pissed.
Okay, so before we leave, I should say, go to SEMA, SEMA, for FORTexas.com and help out if you can. Look at the people who are jostling to run against John Cornyn. We have a Chuck Schumer ringer who's in there, same as Amy McGrath in Kentucky.
You check that door, Pat.
So it's a woman named MJ Hagar, whose claim to fame is she's the first woman to be approved and to actually go ahead and bomb brown people in one of our wars of aggression. When the El Paso shooting happened, her first reaction was to make a "from my cold dead hands" type statement to the media instead of to do anything to help the situation. She's basically a John Cornyn clone running as a Democrat, and we all know how that works out. If you want Cornyn to be out of the Senate, go help SEMA for Texas, because she didn't win against Beto in the primary, and we saw how that worked out.
Right. No, I agree.
So I'm just going to throw my 2 cents in here. SEMA's great. Like, she literally would have won Texas if the Democratic Party got behind her, like 1/3%.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like, the public, this is a classic example of the Democratic Party getting behind the people who will not win the state. Because they backed Beto.
Beto.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Beto.
Well, and progressives back Beto.
For an unknown person,
the home of the progressives.
Yeah, but so you have to look at it like an unknown person in Texas who is literally SEMA. She was unknown and came out and got 1/3 of the vote in Texas and would have probably won the state. I mean, who gets, like, I'm sorry, but nobody gets 1/3 of the vote in a state who's unknown, who couldn't have won without party support. If the party backed her, she would have won in Texas. So,
and we wouldn't have Ted Cruz anymore.
We would not have Ted Cruz. So
let's do it right this time.
The Democratic Party would rather have Ted Cruz in the Senate than Sema Hernandez.
Yeah.
They literally proved that in Texas.
Yeah.
And when Sema called me to talk about helping out with her campaign, she was literally sheltering in place from that huge chemical fire that happened in the spring.
You're right.
I apologize for not having the name of the company, but there was a huge chemical fire. This is in her neighborhood.
Mm-hmm. I remember her live tweeting about it.
Yeah,
I do.
This is someone who understands what actual human beings go through every day in this country who don't have the kind of privilege that a Beto O'Rourke or a John Cornyn or an MJ Hagar have.
Beto should not be in politics.
He should not. He should not. He should have the 3rd largest jet ski dealership in Austin.
He will. That's going to happen one day. That's why don't feel sorry for him, because that's his future.
His wife is a yeah. I was gonna say, dude, like nothing bad.
Beto's gonna be okay.
He's going to fall up somewhere else, guaranteed. It's what he does. Yeah. No, I did. Jason was getting high. Fucking Bobby Franny, dude. So look, I don't really.
Bobby Franny. Let's say that again, because that was funny.
Bobby Franny. Bobby Franny. Aside, I don't have like a political horse race show. This is as political horse racy as it's been in a long time, and it's fucking cool because we got to cover a wide range of shit. Having said that, if I have no problem whatsoever saying that if you live in Texas, you should vote for Senator Hernandez. I think that, again, this falls back on you can't have an organized and activated community with food insecure or housing insecure or street camping people who may get their shit lit on fire by angry masked gunmen with fucking cans of gasoline. Like, there's gotta be a measure of stability to organize at the political level, and it's either that or such a degree of instability that enough people get up off of their couch, go out into the street, surround the halls of power, and say we want our fucking representation now.
Yep.
You know, that's where we're at. Do you need to hop over?
No, I'm gonna have to cut out here in a minute. She's got a migraine.
Yeah, no, I get it.
Okay. Yeah, and by the way, I'm with you. It's why I haven't jumped on a political campaign for a while.
Yeah.
I think Sema's a pretty special case in a lot of ways, which is why I'm happy to help her out. I also don't think filling out a multiple choice quiz every 2 years counts as self-government. But if you want to bring attention to these issues, you got to join the reality show. You got to join the reality TV show called American Politics. And frankly, look what Bernie did by, quote unquote, losing the Democratic primary. Look where his policies are now. I think Sema is that kind of person, and I think she can really bring a lot of these issues forward. And at the very least, make John Cornyn really fucking uncomfortable, which would be fun to see.
Jay, you can sign off. Well, let Jay sign off real quick because he's got to bounce. We can continue the conversation for a couple of more minutes, and then we'll wrap and get out of here, too.
I should check my... sorry about that. Yeah, I'm going to have to bounce it.
All right, ladies and germs, at Parent Quern, people of the 99%, my parting thought is get involved. Super simple. It's like these gentlemen were saying. You can't sit back and constantly critique and criticize and not do anything. It's about standing up in your local community, as Steve said in the past, getting together with other like-minded individuals and fighting against developers, Silicon Valley, corporate interests, etc. in your area. Get out there and do something other than just complaining, because complaining is easy. Doing something, that's the more noble thing to do.
Cool.
It's been a blast, gentlemen.
All right, man.
Hugs and kisses.
You go take care of that. Yeah, at this point in the show, this is where I stress decentralized activism too. And what I mean by decentralized activism is you and a couple of your friends going out and doing a direct action, and that way nobody is infiltrating your organization because it's you and a couple of your friends, and you can coordinate that action with a couple more of your friends in multiple locations, and that can become multiple decentralized demonstrations without the opportunity for disruption before the fact, but only a reaction. And you can do that, and you can take pictures, or you can film it, and you can post it, and you can let people know that there are things that you are willing to put out there, whatever your issue is. I think if you're doing that and you believe in things like net neutrality or the veneer of what's left of the First Amendment, or any kind of investigative journalism on the level that Whitney Webb has been able to do, or Glenn Greenwald for his part, number of people that do actual independent journalism, then you should be concerned about Julian Assange. You should be concerned about Chelsea Manning, who just went over the $40,000 mark in fines as of this morning. There again, Taylor brought it up. I will probably talk about it at some point, but there is, and Brook did too, that Consortium News, and I don't know if you guys have ever watched their live stream. It's Joe Loria and Elizabeth Voss. And they had on, they rolled tape on Mark Davies with archival footage of him and Julian Assange, like we are.
Well, they really don't want to
oh
discuss
shit.
how we got here.
And
Esmeralda.
David Lee from The Guardian. Luke Harding. David Lee went on to write the Smear book, where in one of the chapters he used the password that would expose the unredacted files for all of the names that were in the Iraq war logs. There's no reason to doubt that he wasn't encouraged to do that. He has this footage of fucking and first-person account of The Guardian, Der Spiegel, and the New York Times hanging Julian Assange out to dry.
Yeah.
And one of the charges that the Trump administration levied on him was that he had willingly put people in harm's way to release this information in the Iraq war logs and the collateral murder. And you see through the video footage of Mark Davies that he had been set up as the fall guy from the beginning by The Guardian, and that Der Spiegel and the New York Times went along with it. It is fucking incredible.
And also completely unsurprising. Right? I mean, these are the same clowns who engineered a war that killed 1 million innocent Iraqis.
Yeah. So John Kiriakou, I asked him why it's always the same playbook, why has Julian Assange been smeared as a sex offender when all evidence to the contrary is available for anyone to read? Why is the coup strategy always the same? And he said, because they're not as smart as they think they are, and they never have consequences for what they do.
Yep.
Yeah.
So if it ain't broke,
Why would you
destabilize it.
And that's actually the thing that's gonna that makes me optimistic, is that most of the people in these positions are goddamn idiots. And they got to where they are not because of their intelligence or their talent or any type of skill set they have, aside from crawling up the ass of the next person above them.
I think that's 90% of the Democratic Party.
Yeah, they're just a bunch of
sultans.
bootleggers.
Like, they're just
Yeah.
idiots.
Yeah.
And you
They're
look
just-
at the things that they put out with these arguments. It's like
So-
only somebody stupid could think we're this stupid.
Yeah, so half the people lobbying for, like Medicare Advantage or something. Like, these are Republican people mostly when you look into their backgrounds.
Sure.
And they lobbied for like Chris Christie or whatever. Like they're not.
Yeah.
They're
Biden
not
just
anyone that Democrats should ever take a cue from.
Biden just brought on one of George Bush's advisors who helped write
Yeah.
Iraq war policy.
And the other thing you have to
Great
realize
guy
is
to take advice from.
there's a huge
Right there.
class issue here, which almost to a person.
You
we're
don't
talking
say.
We're talking about trust-funded fancy lads, children of wealth. Look at the
fund
people
kids.
running Mother Jones now. Look at the people.
Yeah.
These are.
So
I mean,
if you honestly had if the MSNBC and CNN had the labels on people when they came on their show, it'd be like,
Yeah.
working against you, fuck you, poor people, you know.
Yeah.
Let's just fucking poison your water. These are the labels that would be on the people on the show every night on CNN and MSNBC.
yeah.
I mean, we live in a fucking cartoon.
We do.
What I meant.
Can't drop a piano on anyone. It's really frustrating.
Well, you apparently can.
Legally.
You apparently can you apparently can commit suicide without actually committing suicide.
Yeah.
You know. Was it you that said something like 17 shots in the back of the head is just a brutal way to commit suicide?
Yeah.
No, but
Good line, though.
but I appreciate it a lot.
No, it was that's just good shit though. And yeah, your point about the Clinton body count and the Trump body count and all that shit, that is manufactured confusion in a post-consent reality. They've done manufactured consent. It was handled. If it wasn't fully 100% handled by September 11th, it was immediately handled after.
And the other thing is, it's completely unnecessary. Okay, you don't need to prove that Hillary Clinton killed Seth Rich. You just look at Libya. There's your Clinton body count. Look at Honduras. There's the Clinton body count.
Yeah,
they do it out in the open. And there's no consequences.
The 17 personal guards thing is as just a bad stroke of luck as the 3 house fires before having to answer a subpoena on 3 different properties.
But all that is it's used to get us on one side or the other.
Yeah.
It's like, it doesn't matter. Like,
no, the point is they're all doing this, and that should be the point. Jimmy Dore makes the point, like Trump was supposed to, or I thought he would, tear the mask off of how just fucked our politics are in general and how rotten to the core of the system is. And instead, they've successfully spun this narrative that has made people retreat further into red corner or blue corner, and made people
right, this is only that's only going to make it worse.
Make
like,
people divided in their own personal families.
Yeah.
And I don't talk to my family. I don't.
And the thing is, when you see, and this is the other thing that progressive candidates can do. Look at Bernie bringing libertarians into the party, and not only just bringing them in and say, "Oh, Bernie's a libertarian, I'm going to vote for him," but listening to Bernie and having them say, "Oh, it's some shit I thought was wrong. He convinced me," right?
Yeah.
That happens with Sema in Texas. I've seen it happen. I saw it happen also in Wisconsin. Wisconsin went for Trump. I talked to Trump voters 2 weeks before that election. Who would you rather vote for? Bernie.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason they're voting for Trump is because they just lost their job as a factor who's moved to Mexico. And they just can't. They know what Hillary's going to bring them. They got to roll the dice. That's exactly the quotes I heard.
Yep.
And they'll do it again.
Yep.
They will do it again if you put up Biden or Harris or Warren.
So here. No, go ahead.
No, but all the worst reasons people didn't vote for Hillary are going to be amplified times 10 with Biden.
And Kamala Harris. And Elizabeth Warren.
I mean, look.
And Pete Buttigieg.
We're not even there yet, but yeah, that's obvious shit. Like people, look at people who are the donors supporting. They're supporting Bernie, Warren in some respect, but like, look at the actual vote count. Where the public is behind. They're not behind. Who is behind fucking Biden? I need to even
meet a real life Biden supporter. So I think what happens is that every time someone says that, there's like a count okay, now X amount of people have said they needed to see a Biden supporter. So an ad goes out through Central Casting or something like that. Somebody goes and puts on a Joe Biden t-shirt or some shit like that, or makes a post, and they're like, yeah, I'm hanging out here right now. I love Joe Biden. And they've got the fucking talking points, and they can be like, okay, I'm a Joe Biden supporter. You know, sure, he was a prick, but I met one. We got to wrap. I have had a fucking blast with y'all. Thank you so much for driving down. It has been cool as shit. Fuck, dude, this has been Slow News Day.
Cheers.
Yeah. I'm Steve Voikinen. Good luck to us all.
All right.
And almost